Showtime. Showtime, showtime. Waiting on Rockfin to do what it's supposed to do. Waiting on you. All right, let's go.
I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati.
All right. Happy Tuesday, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Sab's podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. If you're new, I do want to let you know that Sab's podcast is a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch me there on Thursdays for the Sabby and JB show, and you can catch me here on Tuesday, Thursday, and Sundays. I want to give a shout out to everyone watching on YouTube, Rockfin, Twitter, and Rumble, and welcome back, guys. We have some interesting stories to discuss tonight. We actually have 6 stories tonight, and we are going to do call in after the show. So I get to hear from you about how you feel about all this. But things are going down, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight's theme is Fool Me Once. And that's all it takes, at least for me. I do want to start out by giving shout outs to people in the chat. Don't forget to answer that poll question. I'm curious to see how you guys feel about that. Shout out to Alistair, says from Scotland with love. Scotland, holy smokes. What is up? Shout out to Jane, says this is at 01 hour in the morning for me in France, but I will stay up for it. France. All right. The international peeps in the house. Greetings, Blockbuster says hi. Shout out to Bruh, says bruh. And you probably say it just like that. Greetings to Just Me, says, hey, Sabby. Shout out to Go Artist, says, hi, lovely early birds. Greetings, Lorez, says, hey, Sabby, Eric, Corey, and RBN fam. Hope everybody had a good weekend. Voted yes. That's my first reaction. She probably won't end up doing it, though. The ceasefire is already over. Yeah, we're going to get into that tonight, ladies and gents. I'm curious to hear what you guys think about that poll question, because Marjorie Taylor Greene seems to be moving a little bit. And I'm curious what you guys think about that. When we get into that discussion about her and Tim Dillon, I finally had a chance to sit down and watch that full interview. I don't know. It makes me wonder. Makes me wonder. Greetings Rain says, I love Richard Wolff's presentation, Revolution versus Reform. I think if we had a second chance, we should lean more into Malcolm X equals revolution. Yeah, we're going to do a breakdown about Malcolm X and neoliberalism tonight. That's going to be our deep dive story. I haven't done a deep dive in a while, so I'm excited about that. Greetings, Hannah says, Sab, what's up? Shout out to Mark Pugsley says, Sabby. Greetings, Trell. Hey, Sabby, I don't know if you saw or heard about the deep dive documentary about September 11, Connection with Israel by Ryan Dawson. It is a much-watched film. Haven't seen that yet. Apparently, there's a number of those that I need to watch, as I've been told by people. Greetings, Dana says, doobie doobie doo. Shout out to Henrik says, don't forget to hit the subscribe and like button. Thank you, Henrik. Greetings, Kermit says, I'm an enormous Sabby fan. Well, what's going on, Kermit? Shout out to James says, go Sabby. Greetings, Go Artist says, whoop, whoop. Mr. Moto says, it's the final countdown. Yes. Shout out to Aces. I'm sorry. He hyped this stream. And greetings to Yusuf says, hey, girl. Okay, ladies and gents, we have quite a bit to get into tonight. Like I said, we have 6 stories to discuss. First and foremost, let's go ahead and give a shout out to everyone who is a Sabby patron. Thank you guys so much for your support. Really do appreciate you, fam. If you're interested in being a Sabby patron, I have 5 categories. Ultimate, Sabinators, there's Sabsters. Don't forget about those guys. And of course, we would not be complete without our Sabbies. No, we would not. And of course, we have members. All of their names are listed here, and you'll also see their names scrolling across the bottom of the screen throughout the show on the ticker at the bottom. I do want to give a shout out to new Sabby patrons. Over here, we call them newbies. Let's give it up for M City Mum and Albert. Thank you and welcome to the newbies. What is going on? What is going on? Okay. Let's get moving, folks. Let's get moving. If you have not done so, do me a solid and smash that like button. If you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share, just like a Care Bear. Now, let's go ahead and get into this thumbnail, ladies and gents. Again, tonight's theme is Fool Me Once. Let me show you what we are discussing tonight. It has been a crazy weekend. I got to tell you that much. Tonight, ladies and gents, we are discussing, this is an interesting conversation here with Tim Dillon and Marjorie Taylor Greene. And it seems like, based on what I saw from this interview, it seems like Marjorie Taylor Greene seems to be moving a little bit on some of these issues. And I do believe it's because of the feedback that she's getting from her constituents, right? Like, they are not happy about this economy. As I told you guys, like, those states, the red states, the rural areas would be hit the most by this economic issue that we're dealing with right now. I want to get into all of that. And I want to explain to you guys, like, what I think could be happening there. So this interview with Tim Dillon and Marjorie Taylor Greene is all over the place. Like, everybody's talking about it. Tim Dillon had the opportunity to talk to her for a long time too. So it wasn't just like a short, quick interview. We're also going to discuss, yes, you're going to see the picture of Trump right there. We're going to give you an update about the ceasefire in this meeting that Donald Trump had with Israel, because the ceasefire has already ended. And there are a number of people that are competing. I guess they're kind of competing with like the social media algo, and they're trying to get a lot of like hits and stuff on their tweet. And they're not telling people what just happened yesterday, what just happened on Monday. And also, I'm going to show you who actually signed that Gaza peace deal, because it's not what you think. We're also going to discuss, we are getting a stern warning from Xi Jinping from China. They are not happy about these tariffs that have been announced by Donald Trump. And this could definitely have a dramatic impact on us here in the U.S., not just because not just the big corporations, but also small businesses. And I'll get into that as well. We're also going to get into, if you haven't seen this, Aipac is trying to rebrand. They now have a new Aipac ad. And I think everybody needs to see this. And I'm going to tell you what this is really all about, especially when we look at that new poll that was just released about American support for Israel. We're also going to discuss Malcolm X neoliberalism. This is our deep dive story for the week. I haven't done one in a while. We're going to look at what Malcolm X tried to warn everyone about, and we're going to compare it to where we are right now. And I think there's some things to be said for that. I think we really need to look back at the warning that came from him and how neoliberalism has actually not helped us since then. And last but not least, we have a bonus story. I don't know if people heard about this, but Cory Booker was just interviewed by a podcast called I Have Had It, and they let him know that they have had it with him. So it's not good for Cory. It's good for them. But they did press him. They did push back on him. And I think this interview is very revealing. So we're going to get into all of that. Again, tonight's theme is Fool Me Once. So let's go ahead and get into this first story, ladies and gents. Okay. On Monday, President Trump was in Israel. He spoke to the Knesset about the Gaza peace deal. There were a number of things that were said during that presentation that Donald Trump gave, which I'm going to address. Miriam Adelson was present. Of course, you know, big contributor to Donald Trump's campaign, a huge supporter of Israel. But on top of that, this is not a peace deal. A week ago, or maybe it was a couple of days ago, I warned you guys that this was not a peace deal, that I did not trust Israel to uphold this permanent ceasefire, and they're not. And now you will see where we are today. They couldn't even get by 1 week without already trying to kill people in Gaza. So we're going to get into all of that. Now, first and foremost, Donald Trump here is signing this agreement. So this person here, CJ Pearson, so he is one of the paid Israel influencers. He's one of the ones that is receiving that $7,000 to post. He was on that chart of the paid pro-Israel influencers. And I have to say that to make something very clear. So he shares this and says President Trump and Middle Eastern leaders have officially signed the Gaza peace deal, one of the most historic foreign policy achievements in American history. So let me show you this here.
Okay. This took 3,000 years to get to this point. Can you believe it? And it's going to hold up, too. It's going to hold up. Okay, thank you. You can use my pen if you want. Have a pen? And use mine? Okay. Okay.
Yes, Danny, it does remind me of that. It's like pen ASMR.
Okay.
Okay, so what do you guys notice, right? Okay, so you see who's signing this. We can go forward here. See who's here? Hold on. Let's go back to Donald Trump because I want you to see who's present. Right here. Okay. So you have Donald Trump is present with Arab leaders, and they are signing that agreement. What CJ Pearson does not tell you in this tweet that he shared is that Israel did not sign this agreement. Now, I will say this. I will say, when we compare the two, Trump and Biden, one thing that Trump did do differently is he was willing to negotiate with Hamas, right? So he had Steve Witkoff basically contact them and negotiate with them directly. Biden was not willing to do that. Biden was not willing to talk to Hamas, didn't want anything to do with them at all. That is one of the differences that I will point out. However, people are saying that this peace has happened. I just want to show you who signed this agreement. So I shared this on X. Israel did not sign this agreement. Influencers are omitting info to run cover for Trump. And again, I am sharing this tweet from CJ Pearson because he is one of the paid pro-influencers who is not telling you this part. Look at this. The Trump Declaration for Enduring Peace and Prosperity. So this is who signed it, ladies and gentlemen. Donald Trump, of course. We have the president of Egypt. We have the emir of the state of Qatar. And we have the president of the Republic of Turkey. Israel never signed this agreement, which means Israel does not really support this. And that's really what it comes down to, because the other Arab leaders, they're not bombing people in Gaza. They're not shooting people in Gaza. Israel is. So there's this thing that's going around on social media where a lot of the pro-paid Israel influencers are saying, we got to applaud Trump. He finally got peace in the Middle East. But they're not telling you this part. And it's important that they show that to you, because that right there lets you know that Israel was not going to uphold their end of the deal. So people say, give credit to Trump for trying to do something. Like I said, I do give credit to Trump for this. I give credit for him talking to Hamas, trying to make a negotiation with Hamas, which is something that Biden was not willing to do. But at the end of the day, Donald Trump gave weapons to Israel, just like Biden gave weapons to Israel. Palestinians were killed under Donald Trump's presidency, just like they were killed under Joe Biden's presidency. The one thing different, he was willing to make a negotiation with Hamas. So that's how we got at least this far. However, on Monday, this happened. This is what I was trying to tell people. Israel was not going to uphold that ceasefire, and they covered it immediately, surprisingly, on Sky News. Listen to this.
Breaking news to bring you now. It's coming from the Israel Defense Forces, the IDF, and relates to Gaza. And they've put out a statement saying that earlier today, several suspects were identified crossing the yellow line. That's the line which the IDF has withdrawn to as part of the first phase of the ceasefire agreement in Gaza. So they said suspects crossed the yellow line, approached IDF troops in northern Gaza, which they say constitutes a violation of the ceasefire agreement. They say attempts were made to distance the suspects. They did not comply, continued approaching the troops, who opened fire to remove the threat. They say the reports regarding terrorists' infiltration to an IDF position are incorrect. And they finish off by saying the IDF calls on Gaza residents to follow its instructions and not to approach the troops deployed in the area. Nevertheless, that sounds very much like the continuation of at least some violence in the Gaza Strip. But
yes. So let me go ahead and tell you what they are saying with no proof. The IDF is saying that they killed those Palestinians in Gaza on Monday because they crossed the yellow line. So we talked before about that yellow border where the IDF was supposed to walk back to that yellow line, and the Palestinians were not supposed to cross that line. There's no proof of that. For all we know, they could have just killed them just because. Let's also remember that before the hostages were even released, there were IDF soldiers, videos of them bombing as many homes as possible, destroying as much as they could as possible before the Palestinian people were able to return home. Now I'll show you a little bit more, because it wasn't just that incident. Middle East Eye covered it here as well. Israel kills 7 Palestinians in violation of Gaza ceasefire. So you see what the excuse that they're using? Yeah. So let's get into it. They killed 7 Palestinians in the Gaza Strip on Tuesday earlier, excuse me, in violation of the ceasefire agreement signed last week. According to local health officials, 6 people were killed in Gaza and 1 in Khan Yunis. In Gaza City, eastern Sharija neighborhood, at least 5 people were killed in an aerial attack while inspecting their homes. So there was also a drone attack that happened. So what's the excuse for the people who were killed while they were inspecting their homes? Israel can't say that they crossed that yellow line. So do you see what I mean? There's no ceasefire. And everyone needs to stop saying that. And I warned people days ago, you cannot trust Israel. They cannot be trusted. When people ask me, well, what is this idea of peace? As long as there is occupation, there is no peace. As long as people are occupied, there is no peace, because what that means is that you have Israel still controlling what goes into Gaza, still raising hell on the Palestinian people. The only way that you get real peace is to end the occupation. And I would go a step further and to say Israel can't be there. Because we just know that Benjamin Netanyahu's plan is that greater Israel project. So as long as Israel is there, this is going to continue. Another thing, don't forget Benjamin Netanyahu is still facing multiple charges. So as long as he continues the attacks, he doesn't have to go to court. Let's go on a little bit more. Separately, a drone strike in the town of Al-Fakari, east of Khan Yunis, killed at least 1 person. These attacks constitute a breach of the ceasefire agreement that took effect on Friday, which explicitly stated that all military operations, including aerial and artillery bombardment and targeting operations, will suspend. Everybody see what's happening here, right? So this is what we have to pay attention to. There is no ceasefire. There is no peace deal. Basically, what you have is this agreement where the West is going to come in and they are going to control Gaza, right? Like Donald Trump mentioned Tony Blair. Now he says he's not too sure about Tony Blair, but the Palestinian people are not getting that full liberation. Before I went live as well, now Israel's trying to say this is on Hamas. We're going to strike because they didn't give all the bodies. There are paid pro-Israel influencers on social media saying, look, the hostages that Hamas released, they were only men, which means you know what they did to the women. Also misleading. The women were released first. So there's a lot of propaganda that's out there, ladies and gentlemen. In fact, one of the hostages that was released from Israel, this is what he said here in this video. For 2 years, I've been starving. I went to prison hungry and came out hungry. I swear we didn't eat or drink. We're sick, tortured day and night, suffering every kind of physical and mental abuse. They threaten us with our children. I had to read that to you because it's not in English, but you can see here.
وجع سنتين وانا جوعان انا طلعت من هون جوعان وانسجنت جوعان وطلعت جوعان اقسم بالله انه ما بناكل ولا بنشرب ونشبح عريانين واحنا بيشبحونا عريانين بيشبحونا ليل ونهار لحتى اليوم هم قاعدين بيجرحوا فينا وبياكلوا فينا وبيغلطوا علينا بكل اشكال العذابان على المستوى النفسي والجسدي. والله ما بننام بيهددونا باولادنا. قتلنا اولادكم ما فيش غزه. خشيت غزه لقيت هذا مشهد من مشاهد يوم القيامه. مش غزه ولا الناس ولا العالم ولا الناس. هذا مش ناس، هذا مش عالم. من الشفا اخذوه يا جماعه. انت الان
And there's a number of us that have seen videos of Israel torturing Palestinian prisoners that we obviously can't show on here. But those videos have been circulating around on social media, honestly, for years. So none of this surprises me. There is something else that has happened in reference to the hostages. Israel has banned the Palestinian people from celebrating their return. Check this out. This was reported earlier also by Sky News.
The Israelis have banned any kind of celebration. They've also banned the families of those prisoners being interviewed by the press. The Israelis have banned any kind of celebration. They've also banned the families of those prisoners being interviewed by the press.
Notice he calls them prisoners. I want to remind everybody the majority of people that were held hostage by Israel have had no trial. The majority of them are civilians, have had no trial, and Israel just kept them there. 2, they are not allowed to talk to the press. Why? If Israel didn't do anything wrong to them, if they weren't tortured as they say, then Israel would have no problem with them speaking to the press. So we got another problem here, not just the physical occupation, but the silencing, the censorship, telling them who they can talk to, telling the Palestinian people they can't celebrate their return. So this is Israel. This is what it is. This is what it has become. And people have to really see it to believe it. And that's what I was concerned about when they said this Gaza peace deal. You will see right here, Benjamin Netanyahu says that this is far from over. Again, if you are just joining, just to remind you, Israel did not sign that Gaza peace deal. You'll have to read the captions here because he's speaking in Hebrew. He says, but with joint forces, we achieved tremendous victories that shocked the entire world.
ואני רוצה להגיד לכם, בכל מקום שנלחמנו, ניצחנו. אבל באותה מידה, אני חייב להגיד לכם, המערכה לא תמה. יש עדיין אתגרים ביטחוניים גדולים מאוד לפנינו.
Right there. He said, I must tell you, the battle is not over. There are still very big security challenges ahead. So what do you think that means, ladies and gents? Israel has an Iron Dome. Gaza doesn't have an Iron Dome. Israel has funding support from the United States and some of our Western allies. Gaza doesn't have that. So what other support, what other security does Israel need? We'll go on a little bit more here.
חלק מאויבינו מנסים להשתקם כדי לתקוף אותנו שוב.
Some of our enemies are trying to recover to attack us again. So now what's going to happen is Israel's going to start putting their focus probably back on Syria, back on Lebanon, back on Iran. Everybody's always out to get them, even though they're the ones that are slaughtering people.
וכמו שאומרים אצלנו, אנחנו על זה. יש גם הזדמנויות גדולות שלא ידענו כמותן, דווקא בגלל הניצחונות שהבאנו. אני משוכנע שבכוחות משותפים אנחנו נתגבר על האתגרים ונממש את ההזדמנויות.
So you see, I told you when he's speaking in Hebrew, he's speaking to the Israeli people. So he's letting them know this is not over. Donald Trump's not telling you that. The pro-Israel influencers are not telling you that. They're only telling you one side of the story. Now, here's where things get even crazier. Because Donald Trump, he spoke to the Knesset. He is asking them to pardon Benjamin Netanyahu. He's asking them to pardon this genocidal war criminal.
Those are just a few of the reasons why I'm proud to be the best friend that Israel has ever had. And they all say it in the White House. They all say it. I guess it's true because everybody says it, baby. You said it today. Thank you. I've always stood for the people of this community, and I always will. I'll always be with you. I'm always going to be with you. I guess maybe something could happen to change my mind. Somebody that's really stupid gets into office and wants to do really bad things, but that's about it. We don't think we're going to have that happen. I hope we're not going to have that happen. And this man is a good man right here. These two men are good men right here. Hey, I have an idea. Mr. President, why don't you give him a pardon? Give him a pardon. Come on.
So does everybody see what's happening here? He's asking the president to pardon Benjamin Netanyahu, who is facing multiple charges. He wants them to give him a pardon. This is wild. a cabinet full of evil. A cabinet full of evil. But that wasn't all that he said. I told you Miriam Adelson was also present there. We'll get to her in just a second. There were some Knesset members. Let me show you this. Some of the Knesset members apparently were escorted out by Parliament during Trump's speech after displaying signs calling for Palestine state recognition. Again, some of the Knesset members, Amin Oda and Ofer Kasif, were escorted out of the Parliament by security by U.S. President Donald Trump's speech, or during his speech, after displaying signs calling for a Palestine state recognition. Watch this. It's a cult. It's a cult. This Gaza peace deal does not include recognition of a Palestinian state. And I've said this time and time again, as long as there is occupation, there will be no true peace. Miriam Adelson, who got a lot of applause from Donald Trump. You guys have got to see this to believe it. I kid you not. He says the quiet part out loud about how Miriam Adelson has been so involved in making these decisions right out in the open.
Broken promises from many other American presidents. You know that. They kept promising. I never understood it until I got there. There was a lot of pressure put on these presidents. It was put on me too, but I didn't yield to the pressure. But every president for decades said, we're going to do it. The difference is I kept my promise and officially recognized the capital of Israel and moved the American embassy to Jerusalem. Isn't that right, Miriam? Look at Miriam. She's back there. Stand up now. Stand up.
There she is. There she is. That's Miriam Adelson. So what Donald Trump is letting you know, when he made that decision during his first term to move the embassy to Jerusalem, what he is telling you is that Miriam Adelson was a part of that as well.
Miriam and Sheldon would come into the office. They'd call me. He'd call me. I think they had more trips to the White House than anybody else I could think of. Look at her sitting there so innocently. She's got 60 billion in the bank, 60 billion. And I think she's saying no more. And she loves Israel, but she loves it. And they would come in, and her husband was a very aggressive man, but I loved him. He was a very aggressive, very supportive of me. And he'd call up, can I come over and see you? I say, Sheldon, I'm the president of the United States.
He is openly telling you that Miriam Adelson and her husband had that much influence on his decisions with Israel, that they could just come to his office like this. The president of the United States. So he's putting it all out there, letting you know who's really been. This is what I've been telling people about the money. If you follow the money, you'll understand why these policy decisions that are being made are being made. Miriam Adelson donated a lot of money to Donald Trump's campaign, and there's something to be said for that. Look at where they get their money from. So this is what she wanted, and this is what she got.
It doesn't work that way. He'd come in with the But they were very responsible for so much, including getting me thinking about Golan Heights, which is probably one of the greatest things to ever happen.
All out in the open. He tells you they were responsible for so much.
Miriam, stand up, please. She really is. I mean, she loves this country.
It gets worse. Wait.
She loves this country. Her and her husband are so incredible. We miss him so dearly. But I actually asked her, I'm going to get her in trouble with this, but I actually asked her once, I said, so Miriam, I know you love Israel. What do you love more, the United States or Israel? She refused to answer. That might mean Israel, I must say. We love you. Thank you, darling, for being here. That's a great...
She refused to say, which means she loves Israel more. So he definitely put her on blast. But there you go, folks. There you go. If you have been wondering where a lot of this came from, and this is going back to his first term. Also, look at who she was close to. Shout out to Chris Minahan. According to the New York Times, Rabbi Shmuley introduced the Adelsons to Jared Kushner, and then in late 2015, they met with Trump. They pressed Trump and Kushner to move the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem and gave Trump $90 million after he followed through. The total given is now over $200 million. Ladies and gentlemen, this country is captured. This country is captured. We got people who are billionaires throwing their money at politicians to get them to pass what they want them to pass. And that's why they don't pass anything for you. So here you have it. There you know. I told you the politicians are basically just puppets. The billionaires are the ones that are throwing their money at the agenda that they want to get accomplished, that they want to get pushed. And she's just one of them. There are many. And it happens on both sides. It's also the reason why Joe Biden didn't want to listen to people saying genocide Joe and stop the war. That's why he didn't want to do anything. A lot of these politicians, especially the older ones, were bought and paid for a long time ago. However, something was really funny. I do have to show this. This is hilarious. I don't know if everybody saw the movie Something About Mary, but this is just too funny to me. Melanie shared this. Looks like Marion had a rough morning. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Yes, that's her. That's the woman who put her money to what she wanted to have accomplished. So when they announced this Gaza peace deal, I was just kind of like, fool me once. Because the reality is the number of times that they have played at people's heartstrings with these ceasefire, temporary ceasefire, permanent ceasefire, etc. And now they're really pushing this package as peace. There is no peace in Gaza. Gaza is still occupied. Israel broke the ceasefire already. And you see that Donald Trump lets you know that Miriam Adelson and her money walked right in and said, this is what we want to happen. And that's what the president did. And that's what all of them do. So if we really want things to change, we really have to get big money out of electoral politics. Let's go to some of the comments here, ladies and gents. All right. Shout out to Thomas Gimmel, who just became a Sabby member. Let's give Thomas a big whoop, whoop. Hey. Try Me says, I support Trump in his effort to bring peace. I do think we need to be real, though, and I won't support any walking back. They need to free Palestine. Israel is pissing me off. Yeah, you and me both, bud. Thank you for the super chat, Wasim. They are just signing to be guarantors. What a joke, as it means nothing. There you go. And thank you for this one, Wasim. ISIS-linked groups that were in place to replace Hamas through Israeli funding failed, and those criminal gangs got removed and they stole the food. When that failed, ceasefire now broken. The Oracle says there can be no authentic and enduring peace until Israel and Netanyahu are held accountable for war crimes. Truth and justice are the foundation of enduring peace. Eric said billionaire equals puppet master. Thank you for this super chat, Wasim. Do you notice that the Knesset does not present the USA flag? And they lied. The Knesset is in Tel Aviv, not Jerusalem. I did not notice that, Wasim. Thank you. Thank you, JJ, for the super chat. Sabby, I heard MAGA is coming for the guns. Yeah, I don't think that will go over well. And thank you, Trash Panda. We've been occupied without a single shot fired. There you go. There you go. So again, it's my job to tell you what corporate media is not telling you. So that's what's going on with that, folks. That's what's going on with that. If you have not done so, ladies and gents, please smash that like button. Thank you. If you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share, just like a Care Bear. And we're moving on to the next story, folks. If you're just joining, we will be doing call-in tonight after the show. Hey, hey, hey. Okay. This is a doozy. So because Israel is now getting, there's some conservatives that are taking an issue with Israel. The U.S. supporting them, the money going that way, even pushing back on Aipac. Aipac has decided to rebrand itself as America First. They have launched a new ad trying to convince Americans that they are there for us. They are there for us, and they are America First. And that's why you should support Aipac. You have got to see this for yourself to believe it. To me, this ad reeks of desperation.
What about Aipac?
Today, Aipac.
On Capitol Hill, AIPAC.
AIPAC.
You may have heard our name, but how much do you really know about AIPAC? AIPAC is an American organization that works to strengthen the U.S.-Israel relationship.
See what they start with? It's an American organization.
This partnership advances America's interests and democratic values and helps keep Israel safe.
Doesn't tell you how it so-called advances America's interests. They don't tell you what interests that it advances, right? Now, obviously, I told you guys before, I think Israel's just basically a military base that the U.S. is in charge of in the Middle East. And so those interests that they're talking about is to support that greater Israel project. The U.S. government supports that greater Israel project because they want to hold on to the resources. Remember, we talked about the Gaza Strip and all the resources that are along the Gaza Strip. The U.S. does not want those Arab countries to have control over that. That includes Gaza. That includes in Saudi Arabia. I know you've been trying to play all these different sides because you got 1 foot over in BRICS. You got 1 foot over in the U.S., 1 foot over in all these different types of places. But the reality is the Greater Israel Project doesn't stop with Gaza and the West Bank. The Greater Israel Project includes part of Jordan, part of Lebanon, and also Saudi Arabia. You might want to look out too, because they'll come for you too. Benjamin Netanyahu said they want to go and liberate Africa. They want to go all the way into Africa. How are they going to go into Africa if you in the way? So that is what these so-called American interests really are. That's why they don't go forward to tell you what that is. They can talk about democracy. They continue to say that Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East, but they don't even tell you that Israel doesn't even have a constitution. Why is the United States supporting this state of Israel that doesn't have a constitution? People need to push that more, and people need to ask that question more. People need to mention this more, that Israel does not have a constitution. But here we go. Here we go.
Helps keep Israel safe. Our 5 million members are U.S. citizens, Democrats and Republicans from every part of the country who urge our elected leaders to enact pro-Israel policies. This includes expanding America's defense partnership with Israel.
See, defense. There you go. There you go. So I think they feel that this ad is going to be a big hit, but for people who are anti-war, this is not going to be a big hit.
Israel policies. This includes expanding America's defense partnership with Israel, supporting life-saving security assistance, confronting Iran and its terror proxies, and promoting peace and normalization.
They said all that, and then they say, and promoting peace and normalization. So they tell you, they keep talking about it as defense, but the reality is Israel is on the offense. Israel is the one that attacks Gaza and Syria and Lebanon and all these other countries. Israel is on the offense, not the defense. But they brand it that way to make you believe that everyone else is attacking Israel. And then something changed after October 7th when people started to see what Israel really was because of the images that we saw of the children and all the people that were being murdered in Gaza by Israel. That's when more people I noticed, started to wake up. But for years, they have told you, and they brainwashed a lot of people and said that Israel is defending itself. But by law, an occupying nation does not have the right to defend itself. They're talking about this as though this is a chummy thing.
Being pro-Israel is good policy, and AIPAC members make sure it's good politics, too. We raise money to help elect pro-Israel candidates for Congress from both parties. And we take the political fight to our opponents, helping defeat anti-Israel candidates running for the House or Senate.
There it is right there. They tell you we help defeat those that are anti-Israel. They're telling you right to your face, they serve both parties. They're telling you their goal is to elect people that are pro-Israel. This ad to me just furthermore makes the case for third parties and independents.
AIPAC is leading the fight in Washington to secure the future of the U.S.-Israel relationship. The actions of pro-Israel Americans today will help determine the future of this bond and the fate of both countries.
That is the new AIPAC ad. TD says they aren't even hiding it. No, they're not. It's all out in the open there. So I don't know why they thought that this would be better. It's like, I don't know why they thought that this would be better for them. It actually makes them look even worse. But they're trying to brand themselves as America first because of some of the MAGA supporters who have said that, hey, sending all this money and stuff to Israel is not America first, right? So if AIPAC is really there to support American interest, right? If supporting Israel really supports American interests, then let me ask you this question. Why is it that we don't have this? This is right there on the commonwealthfund.org International Health Policy for Israel, for those who want to see. Check this out. Israel provides universal coverage to citizens and permanent residents as part of its national health insurance law. National health insurance. Residents choose from 4 competing nonprofit health plans that provide a mandated benefit package, including hospital, primary, specialty, mental health, and maternity care, as well as prescription drugs and other services. There are no deductibles, but some cost sharing is required for specialist visits and prescription drugs. The compulsory insurance system is funded primarily through a national income tax and an income-related health tax. Most citizens also purchase voluntary health insurance for medications not covered by the benefit package and for faster access and greater provider choice. Almost all governmental health functions are organized by the Ministry of Health, which has regional and district offices. One of the first things I noticed here is they have no deductibles. Raise your hand if you're in the chat and you have a health insurance plan that has deductibles. And what that means, at least for me, is that the insurance company is not going to pay anything until I've reached that deductible. A deductible can be from $500 to $5,000. They don't have one. So they have something we don't have. They have universal health care. We don't have that. How is this supporting our interests? This is what I want everyone to ask themselves. Whether you supported universal health care or not, why are we supporting Israel and they have things that we don't have? Everybody in this country don't have health care. Everyone in this country don't have housing. Everyone in this country can't even afford to go to college. You know, the public colleges in Israel, I think the most you pay is $3,000. We have community colleges here in this country that cost more than that. So no, they have something we don't have. Meanwhile, you're sitting up there saying, oh man, I got to get this procedure done, but the insurance company isn't going to pay anything because I have to hit that $5,000 deductible. They don't have to worry about that. These are the kind of things that I want everyone to pay attention to. Why do they get universal health care, but we don't? And then we're giving them more on top of that. We're giving them more money. We give them weapons. We don't even take care of people here. So when people say, they're like, well, you know, that's socialist or whatever, say that about Israel. Because they don't need our help. If they are able to use taxpayer money to have universal healthcare system, they have a defense system that pretty much protects them more than anybody else. They don't need us. There is no reason why we should be giving Israel any support, any aid. We need to help people right here. Period. But this is the other reason why they are rebranding. Here it is, folks. Glenn Beck had an event recently, and these are young conservatives. And listen to the questions that they are asking Glenn Beck.
Israel has an overwhelming lobby over the United States government, and we have unconditionally supported them. We have fought their wars in the Middle East. Bibi Netanyahu came to our Congress in the 90s, told us a list of countries that we need to take out. Some were Syria, Iraq, Iran, Libya, etc. Through those wars, we have lost trillions of dollars. We have lost American servicemen.
We're lobbying everybody else, and they will.
No one's clapping. Charlie was starting to notice about the Israel lobby.
Could I answer my question? Could I answer the question, please?
You're talking about one thing they don't teach in school? They don't teach about the USS Liberty, where Israel literally came, blew up an American ship because they want us to get in their war with Egypt, and they don't teach that in school. I mean, I'm just saying.
Okay.
Everybody see what's happening? So you see, this is why Aipac is rebranding, and they are describing themselves as America first. These young kids are not stupid.
Thank you. Thank you for your question.
I have a question. Why is there this societal taboo around criticisms of Israel? For example, AIPAC doesn't have to register as a foreign lobby, but like the Australia lobby does. And it just
that should be changed. That should be corrected. Look, I am not going to say Israel should have any special privileges. None.
Israel has.
So does everybody see? So the young kids, the youth, the younger conservatives, especially, it seems like many of those that did follow Charlie Kirk, they're waking up to a lot of things. So people got to pay attention. New York Varsity said you called it the kids are all right. Yeah. But hey, they didn't hear this from me. Let's be real. They didn't hear this from me. You know who they heard it from? They heard it from other conservative influencers that started to ask questions. That's who they heard it from. They heard it from Tucker Carlson. They heard it from Charlie Kirk. They heard it from Candace Owens. And that is the key. When other conservatives then start to push back. Because I say those things, but you know, a lot of times, like if they don't follow the same political ideology I do, they'll say, oh, well, she's too far left. I'm not going to listen to what she says. It's more convincing when it's someone coming from their own party that is starting to ask those questions. So yeah, the kids are all right. And the numbers also don't lie. Check this out. Yvette Carnell shared this. America's overall view of Israel military action. This was in July. Do you approve or disapprove of the military action Israel has taken in Gaza? 60% here disapprove, 32% approve. See these polls the same way I look at these polls. Aipac sees these polls. Benjamin Netanyahu sees these polls. Don't you guys remember not too long after the genocide started under the Biden administration? Don't you guys remember when Biden said he gave a warning to Benjamin Netanyahu that Israel was starting to lose support? This has happened before. It happened under the Ronald Reagan administration, where Ronald Reagan contacted Israel and said, stop bombing Lebanon. Israel's losing support. You see, they've been down this rodeo before. They know what's up. And then there's this poll that just came out. I'm surprised they showed this on CNN. You guys have got to see this.
Yeah, this war caused a historic shift in public opinion on how Americans view the Middle East conflict. What are we talking about here? Who voters sympathize more with, the Israelis or the Palestinians? Back in October of 2023, it was the Israelis by 48 points. Look at this shift. Now we're talking about the Palestinians by a point. I looked back at every single poll that I could possibly find since this question was first asked in the 1980s. This is the first time ever in which the Palestinians had any sort of lead on this particular question. It is very clear that this war caused a historic shift away from the Israeli position in the Middle East conflict and towards the Palestinians when it comes to who Americans and voters sympathize with. This, of course, was led by Democrats, because what are we talking about? We went from Democrats favoring the Israelis by 26 points to the Palestinians by 46 points. That is a shift, John, quick math in my head, of over 70 percentage points. But overall, the first time ever in which more Americans sympathize with the Palestinians over the Israelis. Truly a historic shift.
It's a big.
This is a first that I have seen in my lifetime. This is huge. And we got to give credit where credit is due. We got to give credit to independent media. We got to give credit to all the journalists that reported what they saw on the ground in Gaza, because without them, we don't get those images on social media. Journalists that risked their lives, a lot of these journalists were killed by the IDF. Without them, we didn't get those images. We would have never seen those images of those kids. We would have never seen Israel targeting just random children, just walking down the street. Israel shooting dogs and cats. The evil that Israel has become. We would never have seen it had it not been for those journalists on the ground in Gaza. And it woke people up. And that's how we got here. And that's why Aipac is panicking. And that's why they have that new ad. And that's why they're trying to rebrand themselves as America First. Israel is in trouble. Israel did not even win this war. As much as Benjamin Netanyahu was going around telling people we won, no, you didn't, because your mission was to destroy Hamas and get the hostages back. You did not destroy Hamas. Last time I checked, Hamas was entering back in pretty proudly. They're alive and well. So that didn't happen. Israel did not win. They lost. And they lost the media war. They lost the narrative. They lost some conservatives, which is very troubling for them because they depend on the conservative base, in particular, the evangelicals. They lost some of the Charlie Kirk base. I've never seen this before in my life. That's how we get here, folks.
Shift overall, a big shift within the Democratic Party. What about Republicans?
Yeah, it's not just Democrats, though, in which we have seen a real shift of opinion. Even within the Republican ranks, this war has caused real division. What are we talking about? Well, we often talk about by age within the Democratic Party, but what about by age within the Republican ranks? Who Republicans sympathize more with? You see a massive, huge age divide. Those 50 and over, what we see amongst Republicans is they sympathize more with the Israelis by 66 points. But look at the voters under the age of 50. They do sympathize with the Israelis, but just by 25 points. We're talking about a 40-point difference, with the youngest Republicans being far more sympathetic to the Palestinian position than older Republicans are.
That's a huge.
And that's why Israel has hired these pro-Israel, the paid influencers that they're paying $7,000 per post. That's why they hired them. That's why they signed them. When I showed you all the faces of those paid pro-Israel influencers, notice they were all young. They hired them to reel back in the conservative youth to be pro-Israel again. They don't have to do that for the older voters for the most part, according to these numbers, but they got to get that youth back in. That's why they hired those people.
Huge gap right there. Let's just say that.
That is a huge gap, and I think it's going to be very interesting to see how the Republican Party adjusts going forward.
All right, the news of the ceasefire deal, the possible return of all Israeli hostages. What's likely to be the reaction to that?
Yeah.
And then they go into the hostage thing, which we covered before. But that is what this is all about, ladies and gentlemen. Don't be fooled. They know that they are in trouble. And so they really do believe that they can convince people by sending out these ads describing themselves as America first. No, you're not. No, you're not. Any other lobby would have to register as a foreign agent. You should have to register as a foreign agent. You're not America first. When they basically tell on themselves and say that we are getting candidates into Congress that are pro-Israel, that's Israel first. That's not America first. We got homeless people here. We got people struggling without health care here. We got people who don't have food to eat here. We got people that can't afford to put a down payment on a home here. We have young people that can't get jobs when they're graduating from college right here. You're fine. I think the big thing that people need to push and continue to say, Israel does not have a constitution, so you can miss me with that whole only democracy in the Middle East. 2, Israel has universal health care, but they sit around Netanyahu and all of them tell you shouldn't have that here because that's socialism and that's a far left idea. Well, since it's so far left, why do they have it? Do you think Benjamin Netanyahu would say, let's get rid of the universal health care that we have? Hell no. They love it. Israel's in trouble. Aipac's in trouble. And they're trying to convince you that they're America first. Again, it's another one of these cases of fool me once. Hopefully people don't fall for this. Let's go to some of the comments in the chat, ladies and gents. Hey, hey, hey. All righty. Shout out to Sports. Dropping says, this is cosplay. He's probably talking about that ceasefire. Thank you, Kevin. U.S. and Israel follow the murderous cult, which is capitalism. They aren't doing anything the foundation of capitalism doesn't require. Ooh, that's a good point. Thank you, Dorian. Says, thanks. You're welcome. Thank you, Wasim. That Aipac ad is perfect to advertise. That Aipac should be listed as Farah. Yeah. KZ says, and we should remove dual citizenship from America. You know, I have my opinion about that. I see that as a conflict of interest. If you're a dual citizen, especially if you're a politician and you have dual citizenship with Israel, I see that as a conflict of interest. Okay. All right. Shout out to Amin Issam for becoming a Sabby member. Let's give Amin a big whoop, whoop. Hey, hey. Arcane says, shout out to Sabby, shout out to Abby Martin, and shout out to Max Blumenthal. Oh, well, thank you. I don't know if I should be in the same category as them because both of them have been to Gaza, but I appreciate you. And thank you, Blueser. Sabs, those martyred journalists of Gaza sacrificed their lives for all our liberation. Absolutely. Like without them, we really do not see those images. And that's what I want everybody to fully grasp, because it would have just been propaganda after propaganda and we wouldn't have had anything to show otherwise. Right? Something to think about. Yes, Eric, they have been. They have been. Thank you, Roger. Banks, Milei, Israel, everyone gets a bailout but us. Yeah, they gave money to Milei in Argentina to bail him out, and he's hosting like this rock concert. That's what they do with our money. Ay, 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 ay. We are moving on to the next story, ladies and gents. We're making good time. Again, if you're just joining, we will do call in after the show where you can call in and voice your opinion. Hey, hey, hey. Hey, hey. All right. Let's get to the next story. We are going to do a deep dive. It's been quite a bit since I've done one, and I've been waiting to do this one, and now seems like the right time. I saw Kamala Harris once again yelling at protesters during this book tour, a more recent one that was in DC. You know, she's on this tour for her book. And I had to stop and think, how did we get here? Right. And sometimes to figure out how we got here, you really kind of got to go back and look through history a little bit. And one person that I've looked at quite a bit is Malcolm X. You see, I think it's important to understand that the way that you get to a Kamala Harris or Barack Obama downplaying the suffering of the Palestinian people, capitulating with the oppression and the occupation, even prior to October 7th, the way that you get there is because of what Malcolm X warned us about a long time ago. Malcolm X gave a stern warning of what was starting and what was to come if people didn't wake up. And unfortunately, we moved away from Malcolm X, Fred Hampton, Assata Shakur, the revolutionary leaders back in that day, and we started to embrace something called neoliberalism. And contrary to what people may believe, neoliberalism doesn't mean that you are liberal. Neoliberalism applies to both parties. And neoliberalism, in my opinion, is what paved the way for the genocide in Gaza, the Kamala Harrises of the country, the Barack Obamas, and I want to show you how. Malcolm X said this long ago. I want everyone to hear what he says. Pay close attention.
There are many whites who are trying to solve the problem, but you never see them going under the label of liberals. That white person that you see calling himself a liberal is the most dangerous thing in the entire Western Hemisphere. He's the most deceitful. He's like a fox, and a fox is always more dangerous in the forest than the wolf. You can see the wolf coming. You know what he's up to, but the fox will fool you. He comes at you with his mouth shaped in such a way that even though you see his teeth, you think he's smiling, and you take him for a friend.
You will take him for a friend. You see, before people started to focus so much on we got to support and vote for the Democratic Party, there were people that you could look up to try to get these things accomplished outside of electoral politics, like a Fred Hampton, like a Malcolm X. Malcolm X understood that politically was not the way to go, that focusing on the liberal politics or the conservative politics was ultimately not going to lead to equality and was not going to lead to any sort of liberation for Black people in this country. Now, he goes on to explain this in a little bit more detail because I want people to understand how we got a Kamala Harris, how we got a genocide, how we got journalists making an excuse for a genocide. This is all connected. These aren't separate. We are not separating domestic and geopolitics. I'm going to explain to you because what happens abroad, right? That empire, it comes back home. Listen to this.
I think there are many whites who act friendly toward Negroes. A fox acts friendly toward the lamb. And usually the fox is the one who ends up with the lamb chop on his plate. The wolf doesn't act friendly, and therefore the wolf has more difficulty in getting the lamb chopped.
This part is important. So if he's describing the two between like the liberals and the conservatives, you know, for obviously for Black people with the conservative party, it's easier to see that, right? Because it's out in the open. They're very like upfront about what they believe, etc. But with the Democrats, they're sneaky. Just like he said, Now, this deep dive isn't done to tell you to go join the Republican Party, because what Malcolm X realized is that both were a problem and were going to be a hurdle when it came to equality and Black liberation. And so, with the Democrats, with the white liberals, and this ain't to say all of them, but a lot of times they feel as though they are the answer to your problems. They are really good at saying that they approve or they tolerate certain social issues. But that doesn't mean they want it in their backyard. They're the first to say that they support Black Lives Matter, and they'll put a sign in their window to let you know. They're the first to say that I support equal marriage rights for everybody. They're the first to say all of these things. But they're also the first to call the cops on you when you try to move into their neighborhood next door to them. You see, they're okay with you doing those things. They just don't want it next to them. That's a different type. That is the sneakiness that he's talking about. They may not necessarily walk around and call you the N-word to your face. No, they'll just work behind the scenes structurally to make sure that your kids don't go to the schools that their kids go to. They'll work behind the scenes with lawmakers to make sure that the property taxes actually do mean something, damn it. And unless you live in their neighborhood where they have wealthy homes, your kids aren't going to get that same type of quality education. I've seen it firsthand. And for those of us that do live in blue or progressive cities, we'll be the first to let you know how these things really go down. That's the sneaky part. Listen to the rest.
His play.
I'd like to point out, though, that
I say that because it is usually if you study the structure of the Negro community, economically, politically, civically, psychologically, and otherwise, it's controlled by the white liberal, who usually poses as the friend of the Negro, who actually differs from the white conservative in the same way that the fox differs from the wolf. Their appetite is the same. Their motives are the same. It's only their mannerisms and methods that differ.
Did everybody hear that? They pose as the friend, but their appetite is the same. Their methods and their mannerisms are different. Why is this important when we're talking about how you get the Kamala Harrises, how you end up with the Barack Obamas, how you end up with Black politicians excusing a genocide? After Malcolm X was killed, after Fred Hampton was killed, after Assata Shakur ran away to Cuba, and she was innocent, by the way, that opened the door to neoliberalism. Because without those revolutionary leaders, then the other question was, okay, well, what do we do now? Well, there's always politics. Just put your hope in a politician. This is the issue with neoliberalism. Let's make this a little bit bigger. Neoliberalism and race. Shout out to Derek Hamilton for this. And then we're going to get into who actually started neoliberalism, because believe it or not, it's not Ronald Reagan. He popularized it, but didn't start it. Check this out. Start right about here. Here we go. For the last 45 years, essentially all of the economic gains from America's increasing productivity has gone to the elite and upper middle class, while workers' real wages have remained roughly flat. In their report in 1973, this is coming from the Economic Policy Institute, 1973 serves as the line. Prior to that date, worker gains in terms of real wages increased with an almost lockstep one-to-one relationship with productivity. However, after 1973, despite the continued trend of increased productivity, the promise trickled down to all workers from neoliberal supply-side economics hasn't stopped. This neoliberal political ideology has dominated, maintaining and reinforcing economic concentration. To understand why the status quo of growing inequality persisted, we need to look at the third pillar of this relationship, which is race, or more broadly, the existence of an underclass marked by a socially stigmatized identity. This rose in the 1970s. Neoliberal economics made it implicit or sometimes explicit promise to Black Americans and to the underclass that the rising tide would lift all boats and that the new paradigm would free them from the state's deadening hand that forced them into lives of dependency. Now, let's go back to this part right here. The rising tide would lift all boats. Don't you hear that today? Doesn't that sound a little bit familiar? I told you guys before multiple times, I support the universal programs, but there are other things that need to be done. Because even with like a Bernie Sanders, when he says these universal programs are going to lift all boats, yeah, it's true. It lifts everybody, but it doesn't put everybody on equal footing because someone is still going to be on the bottom. That's the problem when you just focus on the universal policies. If you're at the bottom right now and other people are ahead of you and I give everybody $100, everybody is lifted, but you're still at the bottom because you had less than everybody else to begin with. Let's go on a little bit more. This piece right here. The promise of economic prosperity and relative racial progress of neoliberal economics for Black Americans has not materialized. In fact, some progress has been reversed. Evidence from the U.S. decennial census reveals tremendous relative racial economic progress for Blacks from 1940, when the typical Black man earned only 45% of a typical white male's earnings, to the 1980 census, when that gap was reduced to about 70% of average white male wages. But this relative progress ceased. Prevailing neoliberal explanations for this reversal have focused on education, individual attitudes, and public sector programs that supposedly generate perverse incentives away from the personal responsibility. The presumption is that if Black people were more responsible, made better financial decisions, and focused on education, they could get a good job and achieve economic security. But studying and working hard hasn't been enough for Black Americans. So let's pause here for just a second. Neoliberalism is to blame for inequality. This is the part I think some people don't want to reckon with. Neoliberalism is to blame for inequality in this country. There was a time in this country where I think it was the period after Reconstruction, where Black people were doing pretty well. And that was because the dollar continued to turn within the Black community. We had Black Wall Streets in this country. There were multiple ones, not just in Tulsa, and they were all burned to the ground. So you see, the things that people like Malcolm X and Fred Hampton and them were fighting for, they weren't just fighting for, okay, we need to have we need to be able to have a seat at the table. There needs to be equality across the board. They were also fighting for this type of economic stability, which did not exist at that point in time. Stay with me here and I'll explain to you how this leads to a Kamala Harris and what you see happening right now with Gaza. Because you see, as we go on, a lot of people, they credit Ronald Reagan as the father of neoliberalism. He made it popular along with Margaret Thatcher, but it didn't start under him. Let's get into this piece here. Neoliberalism policies associated with Reaganomics actually started with Carter. That's Jimmy Carter, and he did not win re-election. right? Check this out. Research has long established strong links between neoliberal policies and increasing rates of inequality. See, here we go again with the inequality, right? So historian David N. Gibbs, he's the author of The Revolt of the Rich, says we mustn't whitewash President Carter's record. And Chris Hedges also talked about this with Jimmy Carter. It goes on to say here, Susan George, for instance, argued quite convincingly that increasing inequality stems from the neoliberal practices of placing public wealth into private hands, enforcing huge tax cuts for the rich, and suppressing the wages for average workers. Let's go down here. Moreover, the study in question argues that the culprit for the impact on attitudes is Thatcherism, right? So they're relating this to Margaret Thatcher. Indeed, most researchers place the origin of the neoliberal counter-revolution in the post-war era with the policies initiated by Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan in the UK and the US, respectively. However, this book here by David Gibbs, he goes on to say that we should look to the administrations of Richard Nixon and Jimmy Carter in particular for setting up the foundations for the launching of the neoliberal counter-revolution in the United States. So this is where I think some people get that wrong. They pretend that, they tend to go on and say that Reagan was the one who started it. This actually started a little bit under Nixon, more so under Carter, and then Reagan escalated it. If you look here, this is what the interviewer was asking David Gibbs. The revolt of the rich, you argue that it was actually the Nixon administration that laid the groundwork for the shift to a conservative economic platform, and that it was the Carter administration in turn that ushered in the first wave of neoliberalism. So he asked him to explain a little bit. David Gibbs comes in and says, Richard Nixon aspired to be a transformational president, one who would overturn the regulated capitalism inherited from the New Deal in favor of a free market revolution. He was influenced by laissez-faire worldview of the University of Chicago economist Milton Friedman. Goes on to say here, to amplify Friedman's message, Nixon relied on a rightist intellectual network focused on the American Enterprise Institute, a free market bastion. The president leaned on corporate executives to increase their funding of AEI, building it up as a Washington powerhouse. At the same time, the Brookings Institute here, at the same time, the president encouraged executives to defund the centrist Brookings Institute and other rivals to the rising of AEI. Jump forward here. Corporate America would engage in massive influence campaign throughout the 1970s after Watergate, using a dense network of think tanks, lobby groups, and publicity agencies to spread their message. There's something else I got to mention that happened around this time too. One of the things that Richard Nixon promised was to end the war in Vietnam. Does this sound a little bit familiar with what we're dealing with today? So under Nixon income, the think tanks. We get into Carter. Carter accelerates neoliberalism. And then, of course, you get to Ronald Reagan, who pushes the trickle-down economics and says that this is going to be the way. All the wealth is going to be at the top, but don't worry, it's going to trickle down to the American people, to the working class, which did not happen. The point that I'm trying to make is this. When those revolutionary leaders were killed, particularly within the Black community and Black working class, the next thing to look forward to was neoliberalism. This idea that voting was going to solve the problem. This idea that, we just got to adopt to Reaganomics because Ronald Reagan says all this is going to trickle down to us. And with Fred Hampton gone and with Malcolm X gone, there was no one there to tell you, no, we need to focus on building things outside of this and not get caught up in just hoping and wishing that a politician is going to save us. And because those revolutionary leaders were killed, other members of the community were less willing to step up because they didn't want to be killed. That was how the FBI, the CIA were able to stop and silence the movement on the outside. When you have a presidential candidate that is running and says they're going to stop the war, they're going to make things right, then they get in, not trying to stop the war. We're talking about the war in Vietnam. And people still struggle economically, probably not as much as they're struggling today. It opens the door for what we have now. Because we didn't have that real opposition. There were protests against the Vietnam War, don't get me wrong. But all the revolutionary leaders, by the time they were all killed off, you didn't have those leaders within the community to say, no, we're going to organize this way. We're not going to buy into the trickle-down economics, and this is how we're going to save our communities and protect our communities. You didn't have that. So when a politician came along and said, just believe in me, have hope in me, that's what people did. When in reality, if people go back and listen to what Malcolm X said, he was right. He warned you way ahead of time that both of those parties, in particular for the Black working class, was not going to produce for the community. Because I believe that Malcolm X knew what was coming. And I think some people forgot about that. Ayoka says, Kwame, you warned us as well. There you go. Right? So if we look forward and we can see this as well, let me add this part here before we get to the Kamala piece. This is under the Carter presidency, right? We're talking about the Committee on Present Danger. So listen to this. The 1970s produced an elite campaign aimed at increasing military spending and reinvigorating U.S. militarism after its failures in Vietnam. Did everybody hear what I just said? After the failures in Vietnam, they didn't say, let's pull back on the wars. Let's pull back on the defense spending. They said, let's increase military spending. So I point this out again. If after seeing women and children being killed on national television during the Vietnam War, if that didn't stop the madness, we were only destined for what was going to happen today. Because that didn't make the government say, we're not going to put more money into wars. We're not going to increase defense spending. They did the exact opposite. Neoliberalism pushed all that. And because they got away with it and they increased defense spending and they continued the wars after everything that people saw was happening in Vietnam, because they got away with it, that's how you get a genocide in Gaza. When people look back and they say they don't understand how people can support what Israel is doing, how people have no sympathy, no feeling for the Palestinian people. If you look back at what I just told you, how there were Americans who were dying in Vietnam, Americans who were drafted against their will to go fight this war the U.S. should have never been in the first damn place. And they were killed. All these caskets coming back to the United States. If the U.S. government was willing to turn a blind eye to the killing and the death of the Americans that were drafted to go fight that war, what makes you think they weren't going to turn a blind eye to a genocide in Gaza? Once they got away with that, what we saw coming in Gaza was only inevitable at some point. If it didn't happen in Gaza, it would have happened somewhere else. So that part there is important for people to see about the defense spending. And that is how you get to a Kamala Harris. You see, Kamala Harris is pissed because she doesn't understand. She's having this book tour, and everywhere she goes, she's getting called out in the audience because she didn't want to withhold arms from Israel that she said herself. Now, this wasn't Code Pink. This was the climate defiance. They support the Democratic Party. Look at what they say to Kamala Harris here.
They'll figure it out who you are soon enough.
Kamala Harris, you are a right-wing war criminal! You are a right-wing... You funded genocide for 161 days! Anti-Rajab was shot 355 times during your administration! You lost the election because you would rather be a Republican than a Democrat! You lost, this is your fault! We have 4 years of Trump because of your 107 days! You are a war criminal! You sold out the youth! You sold out the climate! Shame on you! This is all your fault! This is your fault! We have Trump because this is your fault! Get the fuck out of here.
Something I want to point out, and that young woman is incredibly correct. I want to show you the attitude that Kamala Harris gives here. Watch this. You see this? This attitude that she has here? Let me explain why you have this, right? It's the same reason why Kamala Harris stood up and said, I am speaking to people asking about a genocide. You get this cocky. You get this ego. Because neoliberalism has allowed someone like you to be there in the first damn place. Let me make it very clear. What Malcolm X said was right. They pick people like Kamala Harris. They pick people like Barack Obama. White liberals pick these people and put them in front of the Black community. He was correct. And they tell you, this is who you are going to support. This is the person that you need to get behind. Who is the exact opposite of Malcolm X? The exact opposite of Fred Hampton. This is not what they told you to do. But that's what the empire wants. She has this attitude because she was selected. She was selected by think tanks, by the Clintons, by white liberals who said, she'll be the one. And she has this attitude because she believes that because she is a Black woman, we are supposed to support her. Let me make it very clear. You can't have it both ways. You cannot sit around, some of you walking around and you like, I supported Assata Shakur. Free Assata Shakur, and she's passed away now. But you can't be like, rah, rah, Malcolm X and rah, rah, Kamala Harris. She's the exact opposite. She is what Malcolm X warned you about. And without the death of Malcolm X, without the death of the revolutionary leaders, we don't walk into neoliberalism. We keep organizing within our communities. We don't trust the politician who comes in with the switchy witchy words and the code switching to make they think they down with you, who's never walked in your shoes. You don't get someone who just thinks they deserve it just because they're Black and you're Black. And so you got to support them. That's how you get that. Without the death of Malcolm X, Fred Hampton, without the fleeing of Assata Shakur, without the death, I'd say MLK, but these peeps were a little bit more, they're a little bit more further out there than MLK. But even with MLK, without them, we don't go to neoliberalism. We don't count on it. We don't embrace it because the moment we entered neoliberalism, the organizing stopped. And that's exactly what they wanted. That's why she got a problem. She can't take it that people are confronting her. This is how you get a comment where this woman compares deportation to genocide.
I'm not president. And if you want to talk about legacy, let's talk about the legacy of mass deportation of people not voting and Donald Trump.
You see? I'm not president. No, you're not. And you know why? Why is she not president? Partially because of this issue. Because her not willing to withhold weapons to Israel. So you see, neoliberalism led the way to inequality. Neoliberalism did that. Supported by both sides. Neoliberalism is not just a liberal thing, supported by both sides. This idea that we're going to focus on the wealthy and not the working class. And even within that working class, you have Black people that are even further at the bottom. So when people don't understand, how do you get to this point with Kamala Harris or the statement made by Barack Obama? How do you get to this point where you have basically they are puppets that have been put in front of the Black community? They were selected by white liberals, put in front of you and say, you better support this person. How do you get to this point where this person who prided herself to be a Black woman, at least when she was running, not having that type of empathy and sympathy for the Palestinian people, lying about what Israel really was, backing an oppressor, backing a state that is occupying a group of people? How do you get to that point? You get to that point because neoliberalism made inequality okay. When the government walks away from what happened from the Vietnam War, and their response to that is, yeah, we killed all those Americans. They died over there, and those women and those children in Vietnam died and all that type of stuff. Anyway, we're going to increase the military budget. That's how you get to a Kamala Harris not giving a damn about the genocide in Gaza. And I don't think she really does give a damn. I think she's trying to show some type of sympathy, because if you really gave a damn, you wouldn't sit up there and still take money from Aipac. You wouldn't sit up there and still take money from these pro-Israel lobbies. You wouldn't sit up there and say you will always stand with Israel. Malcolm X wouldn't have told you stand with Israel. So you can't have it both ways. Pass that on to your friends. There's some people, they want to be like, yeah, Malcolm X was, yeah, go Malcolm X. Yeah, go Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris is what Malcolm X told you not to do. That's how you get there. The crimes of the empire come home. Malcolm said this oh so well.
Today, you could point to a large number of Negro leaders who have consistently betrayed Negroes in a whole host of areas.
They aren't really Negro leaders. These are puppets that have been put in front of the Negro community by white liberals. These are parrots that have been put in front of the Negro community by white liberals. You can't name me a Negro leader who has been betrayed Negroes, who has not been endorsed, sanctioned, subsidized, and supported by the white liberals.
That part. That's how they got there. That's how Kamala got there. That's how Obama got there. That's how Cory Booker got there. So Malcolm X gave us a warning a long time ago. He told us, yeah, it was very clear what was happening, obviously, with the Republican Party, but he was trying to warn you about the Democratic Party as well. And he was trying to tell you, wait a minute now, those liberals, they have the same agenda, but they do it differently. They're sneaky. They're going to come to you as a friend, and then they're going to stab you in the back. So neoliberalism is what got us here. And that's what I want people to really understand. That's why when I say fool me once, you know, I got fooled with Obama big time. I admit that. And if I could go back and change things, I would. I wouldn't have voted for McCain. I probably would have voted third party, or I wouldn't have voted at all. Now, when you bring up the same type of tactics, the same type of energy that Malcolm X spoke about, the same type of energy that Fred Hampton spoke about, you're called fringe. We're going to start changing that. That's not fringe. You know what's fringe? What's fringe is we need to make the Kamala Harris's fringe. We need to make the Barack Obama's fringe. That's what we need to make fringe. And we need to call neoliberalism out for the hell that it is and what it has ultimately done to the working class, and in particular to the Black working class. It's a big reason why a lot of the inequalities still exist. Let's go to some of the comments here, ladies and gents. Hey, hey, hey. All right. Thank you. Justice by Karma says, this is what some Black Democrats need to recognize and understand. Exactly. This is why people get so upset. They're like, nothing's improving for us. Malcolm X told you. Resurrect says, Brother Malcolm. Thank you, Satra. The white neoliberals vote in the Cory Booker, Obama, and Kamala. And then they shame you if you don't. Clever says, don't buy her book. Holy crap. Thank you for the super sticker, Keong Anderson. Thank you. Holy crap. Shout out to Joey, who's been a member for 27 months. Joey Peltier. Gina and I are both co-founding members of Climate Defiance. In my opinion, the executive director, Michael Greenberg, is a toxic Zionist infiltrator. Interesting. Interesting. That's good to know, Joey. Shout out to Blueser for the super sticker. Holy crap. Thank you, Blueser. Blueser says bullseye. Thank you, New York Varsity. Hey, Sabby, you need to ask a union member. Thank you, Roger. Speaking of which, Z Squirrel just roasted Zoran. That squirrel is on it, man. Thank you. And thank you, Thomas. Very powerful segment on Malcolm X, Sabby. We need your voice during these crazy times. Well, thank you. I'm telling you, sometimes I think I was born in the wrong decade. I don't know. I don't know, like maybe I was meant to be, you know, back there, back in the day. I don't know. Okay, if you haven't had a chance to do so, smash the like. Let's keep it moving to the next story, ladies and gents. All right, doing okay with time. Okay, China is giving a stern warning to the United States. Donald Trump had announced that he is going to implement 100% tariffs on China. They are implementing a response here, and it's not good. Now, first, I want to show you guys this, and yes, it would impact all of us, especially if you're a small business owner as well. Bricktop says Donald Trump needs to go to jail. He's a thief. He is literally robbing people internationally. He announced 100% tariffs on China and sending the U.S. stock market into a death spiral. Let's take a look at those numbers. Here we go. This is not okay. It's really not okay. Again, this fucking con artist needs to go to jail. Someone needs to deal with this guy. Let's look. There it is. So yeah, the stock market is tanking. That's one picture. That's actually the S&P 500 index. Let's go to this one, the US 100 index. Yeah, these tariffs are not, I'm telling you guys, and you can wiggle your way through all of this. Now, China, I'm trying to tell you guys, this is not the country you want to mess around with. The reality is we just don't produce much here in the United States. So they're not happy, of course, about the 100% tariffs. Listen to their response.
That recently, the U.S. side has continuously introduced a series of restrictions and sanctions against China have seriously harmed China's interests. China firmly opposes this. The United States not only fails to reflect on itself, but also threatens with high tariffs, which is not the way to engage with China. China urges the United States to promptly correct its erroneous actions, guided by the important consensus from the two heads of states' call, to resolve respective concerns through dialogue on the basis of equality, respect, and reciprocity, properly manage differences, and maintain the stable, healthy, and sustainable development of China-US relations. If the United States insists on acting willfully, China will also resolutely take corresponding measures to safeguard its legitimate rights and interests. I want to point out that China consistently opposes the broadening of the national security concept and taking discriminatory actions against specific national enterprises. Relevant countries should genuinely adhere to market principles and not politicize economic and trade issues. China safeguards its legitimate rights and interests. The determination to safeguard our interests is unwavering.
So here's the thing. Notice what he said. Notice how he said that is not the way to engage with China. So yeah, this is not good. So here's the thing. I know when we talk about the tariffs, like a lot of times people think, oh, that's just mainly going to impact the big corporations. That's not true. Small businesses are feeling impact of tariffs. I told you guys before about the farmers that are feeling these impacts, because the thing is that they need equipment, they need products, they need supplies. And oftentimes a lot of these things are made in China. They're not made in the United States. So even if you go to a local business, mom and pop shop or whatever, you may be surprised to know that a lot of the materials that they use in their shop come from China to make those products that they sell you. So implementing 100% tariff on China is absolutely insane. And I know some of the teeny boppers out there and some of the young adults, some of the Gen Z kids, I know some of them that love to shop at Shein, and I know they ain't having that. I know they are not having that. We're talking about a country that has really much tried to eradicate poverty, doesn't have the amount of homelessness that we have in the United States. They have spent a lot of money on their infrastructure. Our infrastructure fails in comparison to a country like China. They invested in their people. They invested in their communities. We did not. We invested our money in defense, not you and I personally, but our government. Our government invested money into defense. They invested money into Israel. That's why we have bridges falling apart. That's why we have potholes in all these damn roads that they claim they fixed and the pothole's still there. That's why. So the US, the West, is trying to hit back at China because China is a strong competitor. And if things continue the way that they're going, we're going to be left behind. And I do have to say this. All empires eventually fall. We can learn this from the Roman Empire. The United States is in a period of decline. We climbed and climbed and climbed, and now we've gotten to that point where we are falling. And the new superpower that is emerging economically is China. So implementing 100% tariffs on China would be a devastation. And yes, it would impact us. And I don't know if you guys have been noticing, because I've been looking around. The prices are still going up. I go to the grocery store at least once a week because I don't like to get a lot of groceries at one time. That's not my thing. So I usually go weekly so that like produce doesn't spoil or anything like that. The prices keep going up. And for those of you who are the budgeters in your household and you keep track of all this stuff, you know what it's supposed to cost. So this is the last thing that we want. And I want to get into a little bit more detail here. China warns US of retaliation over Trump's 100% tariff threat. Beijing says it will act if the US president does not stand down. Let's get into this. Beijing has told the US it will retaliate if Donald Trump fails to back down on his threat to impose 100% tariffs on Chinese imports, as investors brace for another bout of trade war turmoil. China's Commerce Ministry blamed Washington for raising trade tensions between the two countries after Trump announced on Friday that he would impose the additional tariffs on China's exports to the U.S., along with new controls on critical software by November 1st. Willful threats of high tariffs are not the right way to get along with China. China's position on the trade war is consistent. We do not want it, but we are not afraid of it. If the U.S. insists on going the wrong way, China will surely take resolute measures to protect its legitimate rights and interests. Let me pause here for just a second as well. Guys, maybe this is a crazy idea. What if we stop putting so much focus on what China is doing and we started building manufacturing right here in this country? And I know people have told me, well, manufacturing's on its way back. Yeah. I'm talking about like right now, right? Why are we still in a position where we are depending on another country in order to produce goods right here in the United States? Once upon a time, there were a lot of factories in this country. My grandparents, they migrated from South Carolina and they moved to Baltimore, Maryland to work in those factories. Some of you may have had, grandparents or parents that came from the South and moved to Chicago. They moved up north, it was part of the Great Migration, to work in those factory jobs. Some of you may have had that, right? What happened to all those factories? What happened to these cities like Pittsburgh, Detroit, that Rust Belt area? A lot of factories were removed from Baltimore, right? So what happened was people became greedy. These owners of these businesses became greedy and they realized, you know what? It's cheaper if I just buy these parts from overseas, then I can cut some of the workers that I have and I can still make more money. At one point, we had a lot of manufacturing here in this country. Is it China's fault that that's gone? No. So instead of focusing on China, we should be focusing on building manufacturing here in the United States and get it to a point where we don't have to depend on getting those products from China. Now, another thing, China has those rare earth minerals too. And I want to tell you something about this. This is something that the US government depends on for defense because they use those minerals, some of them, to build weapons. And ultimately, I kind of feel like that's what this is really about. But it's not their fault that capitalists here in this country became greedy and allowed those jobs to go by the wayside. I don't know. Some of you watching, you may have been alive during that time. I don't know. But from what I understand, things were very different. It goes on to say here, Trump and senior U.S. administration officials opened a door to a China trade deal on Sunday as market futures showed us U.S. stock market drop. Don't worry about China, he says. It'll all be fine. Highly respected Xi just had a bad moment. He doesn't want depression for his country, and neither do I. The USA wants to help China, not hurt it, Trump wrote on Truth Social. So, yeah, the USA doesn't want to help China. The USA wants China to not be an economic powerhouse anymore. They want the US to be in that top spot, and China is in the way. You can see this here. Dow futures showed a drop of 887 points ahead of the stock market's open on Monday. The index dropped sharply lower on Friday after reignited fears of a trade war with China when threatened to impose 100% tariffs on Chinese imports after China said it would restrict rare earth exports. So here you go. There's those rare earth exports. So I really think that, and this is just how I feel, I think we need to leave China alone and we need to focus on building things here. That's how I say it. When I was growing up, they used to tell me, oh, China's bad, China's evil, and all this kind of stuff. Same thing they said about a lot of the Arab countries. Like, oh, these are and all that type of stuff, right? But fool me once, because once I started doing my own research, I realized, oh, so this is what this is really about. China's doing better than us economically. This is the funny part. This is the funny part here. Someone shared this on X. They said, I hold the cards. And that's supposed to be Xi Jinping says the cards are made in China. Oh my God. I'm sorry. It's funny, but it's true. It's true. Oh my gosh. Woo. Yeah. I hope that gets worked out, because God knows, if you think the prices are bad now, wait for it. Wait for it. All right. I am so sorry, Circa. Sabby's turtleneck is making me itchy. This was actually pretty soft. So I don't feel it. I know what you mean. Sometimes they do. Let's go to some of the comments here. Arcane said, watch Kim Iverson's report later on Barron Trump shorting the crypto market half an hour before Trump's speech, raising tariffs on China and making $192 million. Tell Sabby too. Ooh, I'll have to check that out. Keeping it in the family. Thank you, Sean. Sabby brings the fire, sending heat to me in Scotland. Hey. Shout out to Emma Jane for the super sticker. And thank you for the super sticker, Chief Raka. Thank you so much. Okay. We're going to get some laughs. Let's go to the next part here, Eric. It's time to laugh a little bit now. I said, let's get the heavy stories out of the way first. Let's do the heavy stories first. Okay. All right. This is the bonus story tonight. It's pretty funny. So there is a podcast called I Have Had It. I'm not sure if everyone's familiar with them, but it's two women, and they interviewed Cory Booker. And oh my God, one of the women in particular really let Cory Booker have it. We are going to laugh. We may even drop a beat. We're going to have some fun. So this is Cory Booker on the I Have Had It podcast. And oh boy, he was just cheesing a little too much, wasn't he? Wasn't he? Let's get into it.
Country. And it feels like the Democratic opposition is just not getting it. There are votes that you've made that were heartbreaking to me, like the vote for Kushner. That really pissed me off, because I feel like this administration, it's not, are they fascist? They are fascist. It's not, we're on the precipice of fascism. We have Pritzker, Texas is sending troops to Illinois. I mean, and I feel like the opposition needs to be fuck no across the board. We're not giving you a centimeter. And I think there's been a lot of capitulation. I think there's been a lot of Neville Chamberlain type appeasement from Democratic leadership. And you're one of them that's kind of been disappointing to me, because we podcasted before. They're serious about Project 2025. They're going to do all this shit. And they're doing every single bit of it. So what do you think? What do you have to say about the capitulation that you've participated in and where the Democratic Party is right now?
You know what I love about this? She said, what do you think about the capitulation that you have participated in? And yes, because Cory has. Cory has. So this is what I mean about holding people accountable, right? All right. Let's hear his response.
Well, first of all, I would say very pointedly that one of the things I dislike about the Democratic Party is that we do a circular firing squad all the time. Their party, they disagree. There's wild disagreements in the Republican tent, and yet they don't shoot at each other. And we have a really good way of holding up these purity tests that if I agree with you on 95...
That's such bullshit. That is such bullshit. They fire at each other all the time. Trump has sent so many people out to pasture, so many people that he calls rhinos. Liz Cheney can tell you that they have the firing squad as well. It's not a purity test. It's a, are we in this fight, and are we being beholden to corporations and corporate interests, or were we really the party of the working class? And that's what I think the message
Two things I'll say.
She said that is bull. She said it's bull to his face. That is what I'm talking about. Oh my God, we're going to do it. We're going to do it. I think he feels like he's a little bit under pressure, so we're going to do it.
Let's see how you do under pressure. Let's see how you do under pressure. Give him a name to remember. Hey, let's see how you do under pressure. Let's see how you do under pressure. A moment can live on forever.
A moment can live on forever. Forever.
Say, first of all, if everybody in your coalition agrees with you on everything, your coalition's not big enough. If we don't have disagreements, if we don't have disagreements, then we're talking in an echo chamber. Thank God I sit in a caucus with people. I couldn't win in some of my colleague states, perhaps, but we have lots of different agreements, but we are united in the fight against Trump. And I'll say number two, which is really important, is that, we feel the existential urgency. And even though we don't agree on everything, I'm in the trenches with some of the best fighters I have, from veterans like Mark Kelly and Tammy Duckworth, who have, I know Mark's voted on some people I didn't vote for. So we may not be absolutist, but the fighters that I'm in the trench with right now, the sacrifices that they're making for this fight is pretty tremendous. So
He called Mark Kelly and Tim Duckworth the fighters. Cory Booker, I really do think, if the politics game didn't work out for him, I feel like he would have been like an insuranceman or something, like someone trying to sell, like back in the day when people would knock on your door and they try to sell like those, like the life insurance package or something. I think he would have been like an insurance salesman or something like that. Or maybe he would have tried to go into the entertainment industry in some way, shape, or form. I saw Cory Booker speak in person, and every bit that I got, every bit of energy that I got from his speech, it just kind of took a hold of me and just shook me and said, this motherfucker is full of shit. Like it really just said that to me. It shook me and said, this guy is a liar. This guy is so fake. Fake. Phony. I've never seen someone so phony as this guy.
again, I have disagreements with a lot of people. Look, I'm one of a handful of people that don't take corporate PAC money. I don't understand my Democratic
What
Party.
about AIPAC money? You take AIPAC money, don't you?
A minuscule percentage of my resources come from
I read it's like 800,000.
Yeah.
Let's see how you do under pressure. A moment can live on forever.
We're gonna drop. We gotta drop the beat. Hey, dance with me. Dance with me. Drop the beat in the street. Because she even knew the dollar amount.
But that's a lifetime number of raising tens of millions of dollars. Let me give you the right stat. The majority of my money comes from small dollar contributions. My last report, I think 76% of it came from people that gave $25 or less.
So if the majority of Cory Booker's money comes from small dollar contributions, and to that point, then you don't need to take money from AIPAC. Oh, am I right? If he's saying that $800,000 is over a period of years, which Open Secrets would show me that, then that means he doesn't really need to take that money from AIPAC. I think he just exposed himself. Like, this interview does not make Cory Booker look better. This interview makes Cory Booker look worse.
So this to me is about, again, we could pick at each other, or we could do what we need to be doing right now, is joining in a chorus of conviction to condemn it. And again, I'm a child of civil rights activists. You think Malcolm X and Martin Luther King agreed on everything? No. Do you think Fred Shaw?
Stop. What did I tell you? The black politicians, no, we got to make this very clear. The black politicians who say, oh, well, Malcolm X and my parents were civil rights activists and da-da-da. Cory Booker, you are the exact opposite of what Malcolm X fought for. Because if Malcolm X were alive today, he would point to you as one of those liberals that's a fox. One of those liberals that was handpicked by white liberals and put in front of the black community. That's what Malcolm X would say to you if he were alive today. So people, all these people who want to champion Malcolm X and say, woo, rah, rah, and all that type of stuff, you are the exact opposite of what Malcolm X was talking about. I cannot believe he is making the comparison of one of the revolutionary leaders to the Democratic Party. You see what I mean about the neoliberalism? Aye.
In fact, Ella Baker had lots of criticisms about King. But when it came to the fight, they joined together and created a movement that was successful. And that's really what my focus is. And as the only person in the caucus that lives in a low-income black and brown neighborhood below the poverty line. I still remember when some progressives from the suburbs came down to protest me, and they were literally chased away by my neighbors because we are in an urgency. Every day I see it. We are in an urgency where real people are getting hurt. When I go up and down in New Jersey, they don't care about the fact that I took 1% of my money from some group. They care about, what are you doing to restore my health care?
Stop. So this is false. Because if there were ever a moment in time where more people were paying attention to where politicians were receiving their money, number one, it was during the Bernie campaigns. And then also now it's after October 7th, where people are paying attention to, okay, let's see who those politicians are that are taking money from Aipac, that are taking money from Kufi. So wrong. You guys think Cory Booker would tell you, yeah, some of my constituents said they don't like the fact that I'm taking money from Aipac. He's not going to tell people that. He's an actor. He can't even be original. Predictable.
What are you doing to fight for my fact that I can't make rent? And in my caucus right now, we're standing up and fighting for those things and not capitulating, as you said, to Donald Trump's attempts to deny 22 million Americans health care, to see healthcare costs double for lots of them.
Yeah. So Cory Booker, yeah, people are upset about rent. People are upset about the cost of housing. But Cory Booker, you don't support those policies that would fix those types of things because you are to the right of that. That's part of the problem. Two, just to give you an idea, Cory Booker is part of the reason why there was gentrification in Do you guys realize he's one of those people, one of those politicians that moved to a low income neighborhood just so he could run? You went from there. Cory Booker grew up in a suburban community. He went to Stanford University, highly educated. But when he decided to get involved in politics, he moved to a low income Black community, moved into the apartment building. Dead serious, by the way. There's a whole documentary about it where you can watch this for yourself because he wanted to run there. He's a gentrifier. What are those people who live in that? What are they saying about Cory now? Because he didn't start off trying to run for Congress. He started off running for local politics. Let's go to the other part here. I think I have another part here that I wanted to get to. Let's put this up on the screen.
And I agree with you to an extent that sometimes far, far left, it can be, they put you through the meat grinder. They put us through the meat grinder. Last Monday, we were the moderators for Kamala Harris's book tour in Los Angeles.
Oh, right.
And all the leftists were super mad at us. And when we first started the podcast, all of the conservative women were mad at us because we were liberal. And so I certainly understand that sometimes you feel like you can't. It's like, well, they're pissed at me. They're pissed at me. And I imagine if you're a U.S. senator, everybody's pissed at you. But I will say, now that we've been doing this for 3 years, I do think that the United States, and particularly the Democratic Party, we have to be leaders on this issue with Israel and Benjamin Netanyahu. It's something that there is a big, loud beat in the base that's permeating all across the country. When you have people in Oklahoma that have never been political before start to talk about it. And here's what I'm scared about. And I've been talking to other politicians that have come on the pod about this. You have Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is an anti-Semite. She is a real Jew hater to the core. And she is starting to message now. MAGA is not America first, where they've been Israel first.
So Marjorie Taylor Greene is not anti-Semitic. Right? Do you see how this looks? I got many things to say about MTG, but she's not anti-Semitic. So you see where this is going? What she said to him was that the Democrats should take the right side on this issue, but they don't. And honestly, the problem is the person that she is talking to, Cory Booker, is part of the problem. Because unlike Marjorie Taylor Greene, I'll say this, she don't take money from Aipac. Cory does. So the reason why the Democrats aren't on the right side of the issue, by the Democrats, I mean the whole party, not individual politicians. The reason why they're not on the right side of this issue is because they're bought and paid for too. That's a big part of the problem. That's why. And I think this really exposed things to a lot of people who maybe didn't follow money in electoral politics. What it exposed is that, what do you do when there's an issue that you know is morally wrong and you can't go to one side or the other because they both capitulate. They both support Israel. They both, dehumanize the Palestinian people, which Cory has also done. What do you do as a voter? Now, for people like me, that answer was not to support either one of these parties. So I voted third party. But I think that if you're like her and they are liberal and you are liberal, your frustration is more so going to be with the Democratic Party. Like, why can't you guys get correct on this issue? So listen to this part.
And for rural people and suburban people, when they hear that messaging, it allows a grifter and an opportunist like Marjorie Taylor Greene, for people that don't follow the 24-hour news cycle, to say, yeah, why do they have free health care and we don't? Why are we sending them all of these bombs and they're killing kids and we don't? I think in order for us to come together as a party in 2026, it's going to take leadership saying things like Benjamin Netanyahu is a war criminal. We have to stop funding the war. And we've evolved on the issue. And I think it's okay. I think we're all at a place right now where we can accept that we have the leaders that we have. And I agree with you that we agree on 98 out of 100 things. And if we agreed 100 out of 100, we'd be in a cult, would be MAGA. And we're not that. We're always going to disagree on things. And I genuinely hear you when you say people don't know who Chuck Schumer is. You're exactly right. So many Americans do not know who that is at all. We all do, obviously. And I think the economic messaging, but I do think that if the Democrats leave this vacuum there, it's going to get filled by the people in MAGA that are seeing a post-Trump America. And it's super easy messaging with the America First thing. It's just something I want you to think about, because I think it's
Let me pause here for a second. I think she does have somewhat of a point, right? Because what has happened for some folks, right? when people saw that the Democrats couldn't get right on that issue with Gaza, some of them did say that they were going to take their chances with Trump. We saw that in Dearborn, Michigan, right? In Michigan, where some of them did decide to support Donald Trump because he said that he would end it, right? Now, I never believed that, but some people did. So the point that she's pointing out is if you guys don't get this right, it then opens the door for some on the right to say, well, you know what? Like, Israel, supporting Israel is not America first, which everybody should be saying that, not just people on the right, right? But what she's trying to tell Corey is you guys are losing people to the other side because you didn't get this issue correct, or people just stayed home. I know people that stayed home and did not vote for Kamala or Trump because they just couldn't, with the Gaza thing, they were like, nah. They just stayed home. Some of us voted third party, but ultimately, a good amount of people stayed home. Listen to Corey.
Political liability for our party right now.
They're calling me for a vote. Let me just say this. So first of all, why aren't people talking about when Obama was using American jets to refuel Saudi planes that were dropping bombs on Yemenis children?
We are. So this goes to show you how out of touch Cory Booker is. You know how many times we've mentioned this, especially independent media? We have talked about how Obama dropped bombs on brown kids. In fact, Barack Obama has been confronted multiple times at speaking engagements that he had, including one recently, about his hands in that type of manner. So either Cory Booker is out of touch with everyday people, which I think is true, and then two, Cory Booker is lying. People do say those things, right? See, you see what he's trying to do? He's trying to basically say, okay, well, why didn't this happen here? Why didn't this? And also, keep in mind that during Barack Obama, especially his first term, people were not as well versed with social media, right? So social media wasn't as popular as it is now. We didn't see a lot. I know I, for one, didn't see a lot of those images, but people did take issue with it. Let's continue. Jesus Christ. What a tool.
Why weren't we yelling and screaming that? I spoke out against it. But
no, it was bad, but we have to talk about current.
Please let me finish because they're going to pull me away.
Okay.
Why? And again, I've been fighting for more funding from the Horn of Africa to the Congo to Sudan. Why can't we get people to care in this country enough where our top podcasts are saying it's wrong that we are implicated in so many things, people dying on the continent of Africa? Why Haiti? Why can't I get top mainstream media people to give a damn about the atrocities there?
Because you don't. And this is all an act. It is hilarious that he's talking about atrocities when you support the very state of Israel that is committing atrocities. Because you don't. And when the politicians don't give a damn, that's why the media doesn't give a damn. If Congress don't give a damn and most of them are pro-Israel, the media doesn't give a damn. And who owns the networks? Who owns CNN? Who owns Fox News? Who owns MSNBC? Corey knows the answer to all these questions. He's very intelligent. He graduated from Stanford University. He's deflecting to take the heat off of himself. You go on to that same media. Cory Booker appears on the same media outlets that he has an issue with now all of a sudden. Why don't you say those things when you're on the media, Corey? When you were filibustering on the floor and you were talking for all those hours in a row, which was basically a bunch of BS. I think Cory Booker's trying to run for president again. Keep your eye open for that. When you were on MSNBC to talk about your filibuster, when you are interviewed by corporate media on those networks, why aren't you talking about those things? Why don't you bring those things up when you go onto those networks? See, this is the game that they play. So he's trying to deflect. Take the blame off of me.
The International Criminal Court singles out Israel, but not Iran, not Syria, not other folks. I don't understand.
Syria don't have no power. Israel took over. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? So he's showing his ass. Cory Booker is speaking like a politician. This is what they do. So let's not talk about Gaza or Israel. Let's talk about why didn't the criminal court go after these other countries and da-da-da. Okay. All right. We hear what you're saying there. First of all, Syria's already been captured. Let's push that to the side for a second. That's also a part of the greater Israel plan since you brought up Syria, Cory. See, that's why he wouldn't come onto this show. But two, back to the question, what does that have to do with Gaza and Israel? He won't call Benjamin Netanyahu a war criminal because he knows his pocket is attached to it.
I'm with you on the ending of the nightmare and the ceasefire. I'm with you on criticizing the Netanyahu administration, which I think is worse than the Trump administration. But as a guy who is focusing so much of my effort on ending human suffering on the planet Earth, on the biggest humanitarian nightmares, I can't get people with powerful platforms to speak even once about the nightmares that are going on.
But when you go onto those platforms, you don't speak about it. So you see, ladies and gentlemen, this is Cory Booker. This is who he is. Don't let him fool you. You know, fool me once. You guys can see what is happening here. This was an embarrassing interview for Cory. You'll have to watch the full thing. I just want to see to make sure if I got that other part as well. I think it's embarrassing. I don't think I played the part about the war criminal. Let me show you the war criminal part where she did ask him if he would call it.
Do you think he's a war criminal, Benjamin Netanyahu? Do you think he's a war criminal?
Again, these are questions that a lot of people think are the important litmus tests that are loaded and hot. My urgency is to be an effective leader in bringing an end to this crisis. And I get these questions all the time that to me undermine my urgency.
I think the thing that Democrats get so frustrated with, where we are right now, where you see like the Zoran Mamdanis and the Graham Plattners rise up, because they can go on podcasts and you can say, do you think Benjamin Netanyahu is a war criminal? And they just say, yes. And that's the end of it. It's not all of the rhetoric answering. It's like what happens to Democratic politicians, they go through this like prism, and then we can't ever get like the answer to yes or no conversations like you do with Bernie and others. And that's the frustration for the Democratic
base. Do I think Netanyahu is worse than Trump? Yes.
So do you guys see what just happened there? Yeah, she was basically calling him out for just having a word salad. That's what that was. Another typical politician move. Kamala does it as well. It to me, you know, I don't even know. I don't even know what to say. They called out the photo shoot that he had with Benjamin Netanyahu.
I'm one of a handful of people that don't take corporate PAC money. I don't understand my Democratic
What
Party.
about AIPAC money? You take AIPAC money, don't you?
A minuscule percentage of my resources come from
I read it's like 800,000.
Yeah, but that's a lifetime number of raising tens of millions of dollars. Let me give you the right stat. The majority of my money comes from small dollar contributions. By last report, I think 76% of it came from people that gave.
Yeah, to that point, I said, let me fast forward here when she asked him about, to that point, I said, if that's the case, then he should just depend on the small dollar donations and not take money from AIPAC.
The king agreed on everything? No. But when it came to the fight, they joined together and created a movement that was successful. And that's really what my focus is. And as the only person in the caucus that lives in a low-income black and brown neighborhood below the poverty line. I still remember when some progressives from the suburbs came down to protest me, and they
You moved there. You live there, but you moved there so that you can run as mayor. So you moved there and then you brag about it. You know, it's like he moved to the projects and then he brags about, yeah, I live in the projects. I don't live in a fancy place or anything like that, but you moved there to capitalize off of it. So you're a gentrifier. It just crazy to me. I'm the only one that lives in a low income area. Negro, please just stop. Let's get to the part where she said, this part. Here we go.
My health care.
I think the Democratic base feels like there is a disconnect. We hear you, like when you did your 25-hour speech, I was like, go, Corey. I love this. That is amazing. And then there's a photo shoot with you with Benjamin Netanyahu. And I was just like, what in the actual fuck? Like, how can he do that? It was heartbreaking. I felt betrayed.
Yeah.
And hang on. And that doesn't just happen in an echo chamber. Democrats like you, where the base, we should make each other better. It's not a purity test. We want credible messengers. Because when we are down the middle, beholden to corporate interests, we leave this vacuum, and that's how fascism has flourished. For myself and a lot of our listeners, when I saw the picture with Benjamin Netanyahu, I felt like it diminished your 25 hours. That's how it felt to me.
Because, yeah, but that's who Cory Booker is. He's a politician. He's a con artist, right? Again, I saw him speak in person. Like I said before, he was just very fakety, fake, right? Yeah, he's in the pocket. That's why he's in the picture with Benjamin Netanyahu. That's why he wanted to pivot away from talking about Israel and start talking about why aren't we calling out Obama for da-da-da-da, which people have been called out Obama for that. He's a part of it. He's complicit. It is what it is. But they really gave him a time. I saw that interview and I was laughing so hard. I was like, oh boy. Yeah, but that's how you should put that pressure on them like that. You know, he wouldn't come on here. Oh, no. Okay. We have one more story for you guys. Let's go ahead and we'll get into that. And then Eric can do the super chats when I go to break before we do call in. First and foremost, I do have to say this. We lost a real one. I mean, this really takes me back. I don't know if everybody saw this, but rest in peace, D'Angelo. I saw it today. D'Angelo has passed away at 51 after a battle with pancreatic cancer. A founding father of neo soul, his music redefined R&B, intimate, spiritual, and unapologetically Black. From brown sugar to voodoo, he gave us art that breathed. Rest in power, Michael Eugene Archer. D'Angelo, I got to tell you, the very first time I saw D'Angelo music video, back when MTV still played music videos, I had never heard that sound before. He had such a unique voice. And he was so young, like a young adult, but his voice sounded like it came from like 1969 or 70 or something. Like it sounded like an older voice. So he had a sound that was described as like neo soul. And I was just like, holy crap. Like his voice would blow you away. Blow you away. Yeah, Wu said, yep, a different sound. It was just very different. And especially at that time, unique for its time. And here's another picture of D'Angelo here. Yeah, he knew how to play the guitar as well. So that's a hard one. You know, Angie Stone died last year and now D'Angelo dies. But there was just no sound like that. And I got to give credit to where credit is due. And someone pointed something out to me that I've been kind of paying attention to as well. Philip Lewis said, the article mentions some of the Black entertainers we've lost over the past years who weren't able to reach 60 years old. Look at this: DMX, Coolio, MF Doom, Craig Mack, Nate Dogg, Prodigy, Shock G, Black Rob, Irv Gotti, DJ Mr. C, Rico Wade, Trugo the Dove, Fife Dog, Biz Marquee, and now D'Angelo. All of them before the age of 60. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Abracadabra. Prince was 58 and Michael Jackson was 59. You're right. So that's something to pay attention to. I didn't know that D'Angelo was sick, but I got to tell you, if you've never listened to his music, go check him out on Spotify. Because like I said, I've never heard that sound before. When he came out, it was just so unique. So rest in peace, D'Angelo. Okay, guys, we're going to the final story here, and then we're going to head into call-in. If you haven't seen this, we got to sit down and talk about some things, and please be sure to answer that poll question as well. Marjorie Taylor Greene just had an interview with Tim Dillon, and she's not just calling out the Republican Party. I mean, we told you guys before, she has been calling out Israel. She's talking about some of these economic matters, and it made me wonder, the subject of healthcare also came up, and I am wondering if she could be moved maybe towards universal healthcare. I don't know. This interview is getting a lot of attention. You guys, if you haven't seen the full one, you need to see the full one. But let's start with this part right here.
Sayings, and I'm so disgusted with Washington, D.C. I hate politics. The two-party system is extremely broken. It is failing all of us. And when I look at, here goes another $100 billion to Ukraine or $30 billion to Israel, but yet nobody can afford health insurance premiums. And then I'm getting yelled at by my Republican colleagues for saying that out loud. I'm like, this is insane.
You've been a leading voice.
That was interesting when she said the two-party system is broken, right? That's the first time I've heard her say that. So I don't know. And I told you guys before, I don't know what's happening with Marjorie Taylor Greene. Maybe she does have different political aspirations. Maybe she wants to run for something else. I don't know. But I had never seen her call out even her own party the way that she is now. And it does tell me that she is listening to what some of her constituents are saying about their economic needs and those things not being met. Let's continue.
Trump campaigned on transparency. His administration campaigned on the idea of reducing, if not eliminating, corruption in Washington. It's going to be hard to eliminate it, but campaigned on reducing corruption. We have a situation now where I don't know, and you could correct me if I'm wrong. Was it how many Republican congressmen and senators voted to keep the Epstein files secret? Right? I mean, isn't this? I mean, I'm confused, right? I'm also confused that an administration that runs on America first is we're still arming the Ukraine.
Yep.
We're still funding the Ukraine. We've hopefully just got a peace deal done with Israel and Hamas. But we've given Israel lots and lots of money. Are you confused? Because a lot of us are confused in terms of what's happening. Why are the Epstein files not coming out? And why are we unable to pull the plug on some of these foreign entanglements that are costing us billions, if not trillions of dollars?
Great questions. I'll tell you, I've been strapped in a front row seat into all of this for about 5 years now. So I'm always a very early indicator. And I think there's a lot. Look, I'm MAGA through and through. There is nobody can challenge my credentials. I mean, I was never a never Trumper.
Right.
I was always 100% Donald Trump, 100% America first. But here we are, and I'm an action person. I'm like, don't tell me you're going to do these things and not do them. And that's what I've always been upset over, right? And when we're looking at, it's like, what are we getting? Here we are. What are we, 9 months, 10 months in? Tomahawk missiles got the president, and I love him, signed off on Tomahawk missiles to be given to Ukraine. That's not going to bring peace.
No.
I'm very grateful that he is ending the war and doing everything he can to end the
And
war.
he should be given credit for that.
100%. Oh my gosh. He genuinely
100%.
For Israel and Gaza. Okay. Release the hostages all day long. But for the love of God, these people in Gaza have been brutally murdered. And
let me stop here. So as I said before, for those who are not aware, Israel already broke that ceasefire. They've already killed Palestinian people starting on Monday. And then also, of course, Tuesday as well. Just FYI, I believe this interview was recorded before that, but just letting you guys know. But even when it comes to the people in Gaza, this is not the message or the attitude that she had October 23rd. Or excuse me, October 2023. Even in 2024, she did not have this type of attitude and this type of response to the people in Gaza. So just FYI, that's why I'm like, what is happening there? And you guys do know that there is a segment of MAGA, and then some that are not MAGA, but they're conservative, that have been calling out what Israel is doing and don't want U.S. money going to Israel, and have been calling it a genocide in Gaza. So I don't know what it was that made her move on that issue. Maybe because it was happening under Donald Trump and not happening under Joe Biden. I don't know. But I know that she was criticizing the pro-Palestinian protesters not too long after October 7th, also in 2024. So I don't know I'm not sure what changed there.
And it's over the top. And the IDF is still unbelievably controlling and brutal to people at checkpoints. It's not just Muslims. It's also Christians that live there. It's everybody. And I'm really thankful that he's worked hard on that. But what are we doing? We're buying out and doing a buyout with Argentina? Like, huh? $20 billion?
$20 billion.
Bailing them out?
Then he just did a concert. I don't know if you saw the president of Argentina was singing and dancing. Like, I mean, it's unbelievable. You know, again, a lot of people I know cannot afford to buy a house.
Yep.
They're not working. You recently said something, I think, about healthcare, which we'll talk about later on.
But let's go back to transparency, because I don't want to let that go.
Yeah.
Everyone that voted for Trump Vance, everyone was like, release the Epstein files.
Right.
This is not even an argument. It's not even debatable. It's not being a traitor to the president to sign my name on a Thomas Massey discharge petition to release the Epstein files. No. I am staying true to what we've always said. There needs to be transparency. But the things that have shocked me this past week, and I was thinking about it this morning, I was like, I've been here in Washington all week, and I've been at my office. I've been in the Capitol. There's two things I couldn't find this week. I couldn't find anywhere the Epstein files, and I also couldn't find the Republican plan to fix the absolutely destroyed health insurance industry that got wiped out in 2015 with Obamacare.
Yeah.
Like, those are the two things I can't find. And when Republicans, and I'm criticizing also Congress big time. I'm really grateful to a lot of the things the president is doing, but I'm really upset with the direction Congress is going. But when we are not doing anything to address the cost of living, we aren't doing anything about Blackstone buying up houses where most young people can't find a house and they're having to compete in bidding wars.
Right.
And we're not doing anything about health insurance premiums. Then for the love of God, what are we doing?
But see, here's the thing, guys. This is what many of us have been talking about on the left for a long time. People can't buy homes. People can't come up with a down payment, right? We've been talking about this for a long time, but I feel like even back then it was framed as, oh, that's radical communism. You guys are radical socialists. And from MTG too, like she had that same opinion. It seems as though to me, and people are pointing out her kids are, I guess, like in their early 20s, they are now being impacted. And one of the things I warned you guys about was with the way that the economy is going, the red states The rural areas are going to get hit the hardest, especially with the healthcare issues, because those states don't have as much funding. You know, we get hit here in Massachusetts too. Don't get me wrong. We get hit here as well. But Massachusetts has more money than Georgia. Massachusetts has more money than Tennessee. So when those states get hit like that, and I believe Marjorie Taylor Greene is from rural Georgia, from what I understand, they don't have the money in the state budget to help when these things happen. So maybe people on the right need to hear her saying it. Sometimes people are more willing to listen when it comes from someone that's a part of their party. Maybe just like when Candace was talking about Gaza, you know, maybe that's what needs to happen. I don't know. But I feel like, you know, many of us have been talking about that for years, about the cost of living and how people can't buy houses. She mentioned Blackstone. Blackstone has been buying houses, BlackRock, like that's been going on for a long time. And it's just gotten to the point where the way that we are going about things economically for working class people is not sustainable, period. And what it seems like to me is now she's impacted because her kids are impacted. Her constituents are impacted. So that could be what is driving things here. I don't know. But we've been saying these things, like, you know what I mean? Like for a long time. Let's continue on a little bit more here.
Right. Why are the Epstein files such, I mean, we could all imagine why they're such a the third rail of American politics. Is it because a foreign government or an ally of America was blackmailing our politicians? We don't want that out. Is that a crazy thing to suggest? Is that a wild thing to say? Or is that, in your estimation, a very likely and possible reason that these things are not coming out?
Well, I can actually, Ty, will you look and get my purse and hand me my purse?
Do you have the Epstein files? If you have the Epstein files in your purse right now, we're going to get more views than we ever have. I pray she's about to take the Epstein files out of this. If you
know that was not happening.
Take the Epstein files out of this purse right now, I'm telling you, we'll get so much YouTube revenue. I'll buy houses for the people that can't afford them.
I'm going to read you a little list that Thomas Massey read.
Okay.
And I can only read it because he's already read it on the House floor.
This is the most heinous crime ever, by the way. It's crimes against children.
Okay, these poor women, by the way.
Yeah.
These poor women.
Right.
Raped. They went in front of the biggest press conference I've ever seen in Washington and stood in front of cameras, shaking, terrified, and talked about being raped when they're 14 years old.
Jesus.
I mean, and there's known hundreds of them, but they think there's an estimated 1,000 or more of women. And these women are begging. They've done everything they can, everything they know how. They went to the police. They've filed lawsuits. They have done everything they can, and they're terrified. There's a group of them. It's not all of them. There's a smaller group of them that really say that it wasn't just him. And they are scared to release the names. And it's understandably so, because when you release big names like that,
you get sued.
Absolutely.
Or killed. I mean, let's keep it real. Not just sued or probably killed. Here's the thing here. Remind me, guys, wasn't Marjorie Taylor Greene one of the politicians during the Biden administration that was speaking heavily about the Epstein files? Wasn't she one of the ones, like, even in her community where members or her constituency were very upset about that and calling for the Epstein? You'll have to remind me. I could have sworn she was one of the ones that were doing that. And so if that's the case, now that Trump is president and the Trump administration had said that they were going to release that information, I wonder if some of her constituents came forward to her and said, hey, you supported Trump. You told us to support Trump. He promised that he was going to release this information. Why is it not getting out? I thought she was one of the ones that was saying that under the Biden administration. So just something to think about.
Right.
get sued into the ground. Now Thomas Massey read, and we don't have those names yet. Okay. Just to be clear, we don't have those names, but we have a description of them.
Okay.
So let's go over this descriptive list.
Yes.
All right. And then people can really understand why these women, and why I myself said, I'm not suicidal.
Right.
But I am afraid of, this has been so suppressed. It has been so covered up, and it makes no sense. But let's just go through a few things. A Hollywood producer worth a few $100 million. A royal prince. A high-profile individual in the music industry. A very prominent banker. A high-profile government official. One high-profile former politician. One owner of a car company in Italy. One rock star, one magician, half a dozen billionaires, including one from Canada. So, and Thomas Massey read that on the House floor. So this is okay to say. It's already been said.
Right.
And we have speech and debate clause. We can talk about this.
Right.
However, when you think about a list like that, those are very powerful people with a lot of influence. And that's just the list of these people. It doesn't include the foreign country governments that Jeffrey Epstein was involved in.
Right.
The circles that he walked in, the business that he was able to do. And this guy didn't seem that impressive to be able to end up in that kind of position.
Right.
So that's an important point that's brought up there. As I was going to tell you guys, I still believe the magician is probably David Copperfield. If I were to make a guess, read Whitney Webb's books. If you guys haven't done so, Whitney went into this very extensively. I would, if I had to make a guess, I would assume the magician is David Copperfield. I would assume the prince that's referenced there is probably Prince Andrew, which we all, kind of know about that. He was arrested and then basically got away with what he did. But I don't think he's the only prince. I think there's others. And as much as MAGA exclaimed about protecting children, all under the Biden administration, there was a movie made about all this, protect the kids and all that type of stuff. The fact that now so many have become silent because Trump goes, nothing to see here, just keep it moving. That goes to tell you it's not really about the children. It's not really about the position. It's just partisan. You're following what's happening, like partisan politics. You wanted it to happen under Biden because the Democrats were in charge. You wanted it to happen under Trump because he said he would do it. Then he said he's not going to do it and said there's nothing to see here. So because it's your party, you just dismiss it and move on. That tells me it's not about the issue. People got to pay attention to that type of stuff. The healthcare part here, I do want to play because I want to see what the answer is for that poll. Listen to this part.
Has the administration done enough to help the quality of people's lives?
At this point, inflation is stabilizing sort of, but prices have not come down at all.
The job market is weakening.
Job market is still extremely difficult.
Right.
Wages have not gone up. Health insurance premiums are going to go up. Car insurance goes up every year. People's homeowners insurance goes up. Rent is going up. Young people have no hope of buying a home. And then when they try to buy a home, they end up, like I said, competing with like Blackstone or somebody else.
The average home buyer now is 38 years old. It just came out.
Right.
The average home buyer, 38.
38. Some of our parents bought homes before they were 38. Some of our grandparents bought homes before they were in their 30s. Like, go back to the days when people were able to live off one income and, someone was able to stay at home and watch the kids and you didn't have to pay for daycare. But that's what we've been talking about. That's what the left has been talking about for years. And when we were talking about these things, there were many people that were part of MAGA that basically just looked at us and said, that's socialism. Socialism isn't even a scary word anymore. I don't know why people try to use that word anymore. It's the same thing they're doing right now with Zoran Mondami. Like, that's communism. It's ridiculous. But it's not socialism or communism when we give money to other countries. When we give all that money to bail out Argentina, that wasn't socialism or communism.
On the flip side, baby boomers can't sell their homes.
Right.
They pay massive capital gains taxes. They don't know, like, well, what do I move to? How do I downsize? I can't replace what I have.
Right.
So there are problems on both ends.
Right.
These are the issues that matter so much to Americans. These are the issues. I know people that literally, some of my own personal family members, some of my own personal friends, they're getting by month to month, charging up their credit cards. Literally, that's how they're getting by, charging up their credit cards. And no, all I've seen is a revolving door of foreign leaders in the White House. That's all I've seen.
Qatar.
Of course.
You know, all these different countries that are positioning themselves as, as partners of, America.
Right. And so I do appreciate the president's efforts. He's trying to end wars. He's also trying to make it fair again for American trade. But at the same time, that is bumpy. It's bumpy.
It's bumpy.
And I'm talking to major manufacturing companies they're saying we support the president. We support what he's trying, his long-term goal, but we're having problems with these tariffs. And
there it is.
Now we're having problems. We can't get supplies from this country and we can't get supplies from this country. And there's problems, but have regular people's bank accounts been affected? Has the stress come off? No, that has not happened yet. And that needs to be the major focus. It shouldn't be about helping your crypto donors or your AI donors or welcoming in these people that hated you and spent money to try to beat you, but all of a sudden are excited to come out to the new Rose Garden patio.
Yes.
That shouldn't be the focus. The focus should be the people that showed up at the rallies, stood there for freaking 18 hours trying to get in the rain, in the cold, in the 100-degree heat. For those people, those are the ones that I care about. Those are the ones that voted for not only the president, but every single Republican, gave us power. I don't think those people are being served.
And that's the constituency. That's the one that matters.
To me, that's the only one that matters.
That's the only one that matters.
That's the only one that matters.
You're not concerned if Sam Altman has enough money, or Elon, or the Tim Cook, or Mark Zuckerberg.
No.
They seem to be doing fine.
They're doing just fine.
They seem to be doing fine. Why do so few people talk like you're talking? And when people say things like this, it's very obviously popular with people that are looking for anyone to have these thoughts, right? Like some people would accuse you and they go, that sounds socialist. That sounds,
right.
There's a lot of people that'll come out and go, you sound like a socialist. You sound like Bernie Sanders. You're using words that people can, liken to Marxism or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people will say that. What happened to you? That's the narrative right now.
That is
what
the
happened,
narrative.
right? What happened to Marjorie? This is what people are saying. Like, people are saying what happened to Marjorie Taylor Greene.
It's the funniest thing to me.
Yeah.
Because you know what it is?
Yeah.
I'm literally, nothing happened to me.
Right. Right.
I'm saying the same thoughts and feelings that I've always had.
Yeah.
But I'm not willing to wear the Republican jersey.
Right.
And I'm not willing to be a cheerleader. I'm not a cheerleader.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be a cheerleader. Here's the thing is, so for example, okay, let's take health insurance for example.
Before they get to health insurance, I don't remember her saying those things before. I don't remember her saying those things before, especially when it comes to like some of those statements there about the cost of living. Maybe I missed it, but I don't remember her saying those things before. And that's why people are saying, whoa, what happened to Marjorie Taylor Greene? You know what I mean? So listen to this part here about health insurance. This is another one that's going to blow your mind.
I'm a conservative, and I can say we're $37 trillion in debt. We cannot afford a socialized healthcare plan in America. We literally cannot. But at the same time, I can say we sent almost $300 billion to Ukraine. We sent $30 billion to Israel in 2024 alone. I can say we definitely should extend these ACA tax credits and we need to build an off ramp because it'll cost $30 billion a year to do it, we can build an off ramp and open up a new system
You're
that will
talking about
serve
the
every
Affordable Care
American.
Act.
Yeah.
Right.
So my conservative friends will say, Marjorie, no, we cannot do that. We cannot spend that money on that. But I'm not willing to allow millions of Americans, people I personally know, constituents in my district, I'm not willing to allow their premiums to double and triple overnight starting in January of 2026. I'm willing to say, no, we're going to have to fund it, but we're going to have to build an off ramp and build into a new system. And that's not me being a socialist. That's not me going against my conservative values. That's saying, stop sending the money to all these foreign countries and let's actually spend it on Americans and actually fix the system.
Did everybody catch when she said, people I personally know? That part right there is important. So she knows people who have been impacted by it. The rural areas, as I said before, when they make like cuts to healthcare and all this stuff, the rural areas get hit the hardest. And the rural areas in the red states, they get hit harder because the states don't have as much funding. So that's something to think about. Now, she says like, well, we can't afford, socialist medicine, or basically she's talking about universal health care. We actually can afford that. The research was done on that years ago. And not only that, there's other things that we can afford if we don't have a defense budget that's over $850 billion. And it wasn't always that way. That's where a lot of the money is going. So we could afford it. The other thing I would say is, notice she still says that she loves Trump. I think that's part of the problem. I think she needs to completely detach herself from Donald Trump. That's just my take on that. Thomas Massie, in some ways, has done that. But all these things that she's complaining about, yeah, some of it is because of Congress, but some of it is because of Donald Trump. But it's really weird to me how she's moving now on some of these issues. So that makes me think, is she going to try to run for a different position? Like, yeah, obviously she probably wants to get reelected, but does she have future ambitions beyond being a congresswoman? And that's something I think people need to think about. Let's see that poll. Because I did ask you guys, do you think that she could be swayed on this? So we have 1,941 votes. Do you believe MTG could be convinced to back universal health care? 31% said yes. 17% said hell no. 33% said there's a chance. And 19% said, I have no idea. That's actually a pretty well-balanced, those results are pretty well-balanced, actually. It's interesting. Okay. All right, guys, we are going to do call in. I'm going to take a quick break. I'll be back and then we'll go ahead and hear your thoughts. How do you guys feel about everything? And we'll jump into all of that.
All right. Hey, all right. Eric T. Red here, jumping from the background into the foreground while we give Sabrina a little break. And then next, we'll be transitioning into the Zoom call-in hangout part of the evening. We're actually, Sabrina's actually creating the Zoom room now, and then we'll be giving you the link. That's where we get to hear what you think. And whether or not you have your camera on in Zoom is optional, up to you. Good either way. There might be a certain feline putty cat here that might make an appearance in the Zoom hangout, as our Kiva cat sometimes does. We'll see if she'll grant us an audience. But yeah, old Marjorie Taylor Greene there. I mean, when it comes to her or Massey or the so-called progressives on the Democratic side, I think our initial position should just be, get back to us when you leave the uniparty, because both of these parties are just corrupt instruments of the billionaires, and as long as they're members of those parties, then they're complicit. So, until then, it's all just talk, right? Anytime they want, they can form a new party based on getting rid of billionaire corruption and start from there. So, that's what I'd say. The first thing we can tell them to tell us is, get back to us then. And just and they mention billionaires, but they don't make the extra connection to say, yes, it's the billionaires, but it's the billionaires corrupting the government, corrupting the leaders of the parties that they're both members of. One of the things that was really cool to hear on our last show from Sunday, when Jose Vega came on, and we were very impressed with him. And one of the things that impressed me was that he just went out of his way to call out the leaders of both these Democratic and Republican parties as corrupt, corrupt, paid off warmongers who nobody should be voting for. And, and that's more like what a real candidate sounds like. And so, until you hear that from them, it's all kind of they're playing their games and playing their roles. And just one other thing I want to say is just as far as the question of like, what do we do about it? What we need is to have a demands-based politics where we have a clear set of demands. You can go to 11demands.org to see what that looks like. And it's up to us to make that happen, to educate everyone we can, those around us, about MCDS, money corruption demand solutions, and make that kind of a thing happen. So if you're feeling like nothing really good can happen, we're not getting anywhere, I would suggest we all work on that together. And yeah, like I said, go to 11demands.org for more on that. There's the 11 Demands Collective that's about trying to do that as a group. All right, we got some chats and things. I'd stop yakking about things here and get into those. Let's see what we got here in the queue. And I'll just remind you, I will be transitioning to the Zoom call and hangout when Sabby pops back in. Meanwhile, here in the queue, thanks. Excuse me. Thanks a lot for this super chat. Trader SZ, who says, a few weeks back was first live stream I attended. Heard you mention you didn't have a sound system you'd like. I'd be happy to fund it. No strings attached. Thanks. Keep up the good work. I'd say shoot Sabby an email with what you have in mind. Her email address is in the description of all the videos. But appreciate the offer. And thanks for this one, King Maggot Brains, who says, just as bad or even worse, Senator Warnock of Jersey going for that money. I think comparing to Cory Bush. Yep. And this is from the interview from the Cory Bush segment. I think, these comments are going back to this one from Kenman, who says, woman on left, is Botox done right? All right, Kenman. Thanks. Thanks to Elda MJ for becoming a new member on YouTube. Thank you there. And Roger Meadows, thanks for the super chat. Roger says, how does it not feel great? And Roger, thanks for this one. He says, not great that he is gone. All right. And thanks for the super chat, IHLS, who says, George Floyd birthday is today. Reminder. Thanks for that. And thanks for the super chat, Arlene Chambers, who says, thank you, Sabby. MTG needs to break off from Trump to be believable. Yeah, and like I said, break off from the whole party in general. And thanks for the super sticker, Angela Reynolds. Appreciate you. Appreciate that. And let's see, we got some action out here on the rock fans. There we go. Let's see what we got out there. All right. Thanks for the tipped comment on Rockfin Roger, who says, you can't outsource infrastructure. The way to bring back manufacturing is when workers own the plant in the manufacturing. They won't outsource. China invested in the real world economy. U.S. invested in the predatory speculative economy. And Dave Burt, thanks for the tip comment, agreeing with Roger. To Roger, good reports tonight, Sabby. And thanks also for this one, Roger, who says out on the Rock Fins, oh yes, these ladies, I don't trust them either. They're all smoke and mirrors because they're still Dem or duopoly. They remind me of your last segment, wine moms on our side for justice, not tangibles and economic independency. who will back away when we say reparations. They got the nod from Dems for being safe for Booker to come on to this show. I hear you. And thanks also for this tipped comment, Roger. Our mistake is we were fighting for justice when we should have been fighting for tangibles and economic independency. Libs will join us on justice, but will back away from the latter. OMG, she just proved me right when she said she was budding up with Kamala. Most New Yorkers probably don't know who Chuck Schumer is. Before I was into politics, I didn't know Daniel Patrick Moynihan was, but I heard the name. All right. Thanks for those, Mr. Roger.
Okay. All righty. So we are going to head on over to Colin. I'm going to put the link. Oh, I did put the link in the chat. So the link is at the very top of the chat there, guys. And then I'm going to go ahead and open the Zoom room while I'm on stream to make sure everybody can get into the Zoom. And the way that this works for the newbies, the way that this works, when you join, please mute your mic. And then if you want to speak at the very bottom of the screen, there's an option to raise your hand. Just raise your hand and then you'll be able to speak. I'll let you know. That lets me know that you want to speak. Eric, let me go ahead and make you a co-host.
Good deal.
Thanks. And then also, if you come into the stream just a little bit later, then you can also join the call-in by going to sabbysabs2.com. And we just ask that everybody mute your mic. Thank you. sabbysabs2.com, and then you can join it that way. And other than that, guys, that is it for tonight. I'll be live again on Thursday evening.
See you
so
in there.
I will see you then. All right. So you know how we do this. Have a good night. Keep up the fight. Woohoo!